Board to order. The time is 2:06. Can we please take roll?
Director Espinoza. Director Hogue.
Here.
Director Serrato.
Here.
Director McDaniel. Director Moran. Director Nagy.
Here.
Director Nelson. Director Director Pereira. Director Silvera.
Present.
Director Yanis.
Here.
Chair Pedroza.
Here. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy and Elizabeth to lead the workshop presentation and discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have two items that we're hoping to cover in the next 55 minutes, but we are going to take them in order of priority, starting with the State Transportation Improvement Program, or STIP. Elizabeth will walk us through and set that discussion up. I'll just set the framework for that item. Both of these items, of course, in a workshop are just for discussion purposes, but on the agenda later today, you do have an action item for the STIP item, which is essentially seeking direction on how to draft the STIP document that we'll be bringing to you next month. That meaning programming requests that Elizabeth will talk about. The second item is the SB 125 alphabet soup of ZERTSEP and TERSEP and ZETSIP. That is an information item. It's also an information item on the regular agenda, which will just be a synopsis of what we shared today. But we do want to try to get through that information as well, because the board will be asked to take action on the SB 125 project list next month. So first one will be STIP, and I'll turn it over to Elizabeth. And let me make sure I have your mic on. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, sounds like it's on. Thanks everyone. Mary Michael, I'll have to next slide you because I don't have a clicker. So thanks everyone for being here early to talk about this. There's kind of a lot of content here. And as Stacy mentioned, this is a workshop. We want to kind of go through everything so that you feel like you're, have all the information. And then later in the agenda, we're asking for action and direction here. So the first part of this workshop is regarding the State Transportation Improvement Program, the 2024 STIP. Next slide, please. So what is this? It's one of our acronyms that we use a fair amount, the STIP. It is a 5-year transportation funding program that the California Transportation Commission adopts every 2 years. It's a funding program. So the majority of the funding, I don't have that on the slide, is mostly gas taxes. It's state gas taxes, federal gas taxes, and it's mixed altogether, state and federal funds. The way that it is split in the state, much to Caltrans' chagrin, I see they're not here yet, but Caltrans has a 25% share of this, and the regions, including MCAG, have 75%. And every couple of years, we get a share. So the MPOs and the regions, we put together our RTIPs. Caltrans put together their ITIP, and they come together as the STIP. Occasionally, we get Caltrans to nominate an ITIP project on our behalf, but we're not at that point yet, but sometime we will be. So we're here to talk about the preparation of our RTIP. So this might be a little hard to see, but hopefully you can kind of get the idea with the flow chart. But as I kind of mentioned, the split is between the regions and the state. It's further split between Northern California and Southern, and that gets redefined in every time you look at it. But we're in the north. The split is apparently between Fresno and Tulare County, so Tulare County Southern. And there is also a split on the ITIP side for rail and other things. And essentially, we will be putting together a package called the RTIP, giving it to the CTC, and requesting that they adopt it. So on the left side there, you can see kind of the schedule. So we're here today to ask about, for direction on what to put into this RTIP. We'll have a lot more details on that in the next few slides. Today, the action would be to direct the staff to put together the draft RTIP and send it out for review. and then it would be adopted next month because it is due to the CTC December 15th. After the CTC collects all of these RTIPs in the state ITIP, there's a number of hearings. They have usually one in the north and one in the south, and then they will adopt them at their March meeting. So this is a 2-year program. So here's just a slide of what we did in the last 2 STIPs. In the most recent one, we deferred programming the 2022 share that we were given of just under $6 million. And also there was a supplement of about 1.5 from COVID, and that was programmed to the Pioneer and Ortigalita intersection project. The STIP before that in 2020 programmed $29,670,000 to the Atwater Merced Expressway. And that amount there wasn't what we were, gotten new funds that year. It was actually the accumulation of a number of STIP shares over a few years, and then they were all put together in 2020 on the AME project. This program is really where we can fund some of our bigger projects, our big highway projects, interchange projects, et cetera. And you can see on that slide there some of the projects that have been funded with STIF before, Bradley Overhead, some Highway 99 projects, et cetera. So this is one of those programs where, there's potential for, big money, and we need to leverage and get these highway projects moving, or large projects. There's a little delay on the clicker here. Let's see. Oh, you're doing it? Oh, okay. Well, did we go once or twice? Okay. So this slide has a history of our shares and revenues, and part of the reason this is here, and there's more detail in the staff report later, is that these revenues can vary quite a bit. There are a number of reasons for this. It has to do, one of the biggest ones is gas taxes. This year, gas prices went up, and there aren't a lot of people driving electric vehicles yet, so revenues went up. In the future, there's supposed to be, more EVs, and they fully expect gas tax revenues to start going down. But it's pretty volatile the way the STIP shares work, but this year is one of our better years. We have about $10.5 million in new revenue. I clicked it too. I don't know which of us is doing it, but I'll let you do it. Okay. So this year, the state has nearly $1.7 billion in revenue. I had forgot the 3 zeros earlier, and it looked like 1.6 million, but we're in the billions. And the MCAG share is just over 16.5 million. So our new revenue was close to 11, and then we had our leftover 5.9 that we didn't use last time. So that's where that 16.5 comes from. This is a 5-year program, and over the 5 years, we can use up to 5% for planning, programming, and monitoring. That's a max number. And then you see the minimum number for a project is 15.7. Generally, we've been programming like 140,000 a year or so. So that's generally what we can do with our planning money for administration. So the 5-year STIP covers those years that you may or may not be able to see up there on the slides, but it's fiscal years 24-25 through fiscal year 28-29. A note on that, and oh yeah, there we go. There's the red box. Thank you, Mary Michael. It's a 5-year program, and every 2 years we add. So we essentially added 2 new years, and that's where the capacity is. So there might be some agencies that try to get a program in, let's say 25, 26, but there's already projects there. So the vast majority of the capacity we're looking at is in 27, 28, 28, 29. Thank you. So what we're here to talk about is, what are we going to do with our STIP that we're turning into the state in December? So what are some of the type of projects? So we looked at earlier, we had some projects on 99 and some of our kind of big ticket items. So we're generally looking at regionally significant capital projects. One of the big caveats when we submit to the STIP is that the project phase that we're that we're purporting has to be fully funded. So this isn't one where we put a placeholder out there of a project that we're thinking we'll get to in a few years. We have to have a funding package, and the funding has to be committed and submitted. So that is something to think about when we're talking about the 5-year time frame and what we'll be requesting to program. We have the Pioneer policy, the Pioneer Road Widening Project Priority Policy, I think that's the full name, and it directs the RTIP and a number of other funding sources to that project, such as one that we called HIP and some other ones, LPP. We like to use our acronyms, but what you just need to know is that it has a number of funding explicitly directed to it. So there are essentially 3 different ways to move forward in programming our share into the 2024 RTIP. So we can apply our target, less our PPM is our admin, planning, programming, and monitoring, to 1 or more new RTIP projects. We can apply the funds to an existing projects, or we can defer programming the funds to the next cycle in 2026. So programming option 1. So this is where I have my Director of Planning and Programming hat on. I'm going to tell you kind of the options and what works and what our recommendations are. The first is regarding programming a new project. So the RTIP, I don't know if everyone kind of like follows the state, the state processes, but this goes through the California Transportation Commission. It's not as simple as selecting a project like we might do for Measure V or something else. There's a lot of scrutiny and there's a lot of documentation that gets submitted with our projects to go to the state to get these approved. And they don't always, approve or agree with all the local agencies. It's a very big process. And every time we have a new RTIP, there's new requirements. So there was a nice big chunk of new requirements that were approved in August. And a lot of it is very extensive data collection, right? So if you think about what the state's looking at, they want to know what our project effects are on vehicle miles traveled, what the effects are on greenhouse gas emissions, what the effects are on safety. So there's a lot of requirements. They specifically require robust public outreach, and that's per their definition of robust. Everyone might have a different definition of what robust means, but that's what the CTC requires. And there is, as I mentioned before, the documentation that the project is fully funded. So proposing new projects for the 2024 step is not a viable option at this time due to some of these requirements that I mentioned. The project development, the documentation, the schedules of projects, the type of projects, looking at all of our programs and project types, we need one that is just ready in that period of time, fully funded for the 5-year STIP, and there's not a good candidate for that. So that's from my recommendation regarding option 1, is that there isn't a project ready that meets the requirements for programming. Next slide, please. So option 2, applying the funds to an existing project. We have in the STIP now, AME Phase 1B. It was mentioned earlier that it was programmed in the 2020 STIP with some shares, as we call it, from a couple of STIPs before that. The project is seeking gap funding for extending out to Bellevue Road, so we're kind of calling it 1B extension out past where it's currently funded. Right now it's in the program for 24-25, but they're looking at construction actually in 27-28. Huge part of that is some of our air quality issues that we're having with EPA that we're working through, so the construction schedule's moved back, and so that's the one project that's in the STIP. The other that's currently in the STIP, as I mentioned, is the Pioneer Road and Ortegalita intersection improvements. So that's called Phase 1 of the Pioneer project. As you all know, there's the Pioneer widening project, and it makes sense when you have large projects like that to split them into phases. So the first one is the improvements at that intersection. It's been funded with a number of sources, including CMAG, the HIP that I mentioned earlier, and also has STIP funding on it. It's scheduled to go to construction or go to bid at least in 23-24. Phase 2, the rest of the Pioneer project, is, let's see, right, currently funded through environmental, and I think it might be funded through right-of-way too, actually. And it's in the environmental phase. Let me go back. It's in the environmental phase. Environmental expected to be completed the end of next calendar year. Funded with Measure V and other things through environmental. And the construction could be a future STIP eligible project. Without having that package and based on the schedule for Pioneer, it wouldn't be ready to apply for construction in this STIP, but potentially a future STIP. So the recommendation of the 3 options is to program the balance to AME Phase 1B in 27-28. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. So here's the image that I had mentioned. I see our pictures are up in there in the corner, but we're funded through construction through the Phase 1B is that yellow kind of midsection there, and the extension is the blue line that kind of heads off on the northeast side of the project there. So we're seeking, or the county's seeking an additional $17 million. That's the estimate to add that part. And it aligns with the programming capacity, but also it still has to get through the CTC process and approval. Just the fact that it's connected to an already existing project might make that a little bit easier. I was at the CTC this morning, and it's very rough to get road widening projects approved. So we have to see what we can do to maybe put the funds on this one, as opposed to maybe introducing a new project. But next slide, please. So here's the image of the overall Pioneer Complete Street project. So it's been kind of renamed, somewhat rebranded. We had a presentation on it, I think last year, and this is kind of the scope of the Complete Street project. The first kind of phase, the intersection improvement, as we mentioned, has been funded, and the way it is phrased or scoped now, I think there's a lot of potential for some leveraging on this project as well, especially with the complete streets elements, leveraging, active transportation, et cetera. And right now they're in environmental phase, and it's funded with Measure V for a while until they get through some of the initial phases. So I just wanted to show that that's there, and that it's making progress, and it's funded for a few years to keep making progress, which we want to see. Next slide, please. So the third technical programming option is that you can defer the programming, and we've done that before. And this again is me with my programming hat on. Is I don't love deferring the funding or loaning it to others and things when that's an option. The funding amount is fixed. There's no escalation. So we've been carrying some funding for a long time, and costs have definitely gone up, and they always do, almost always. And the way that this program works is I kind of called it a share, because everyone kind of has an estimate or a share, and then the CTC kind of decides who's getting funded and when. Back earlier on one of the slides with the bar chart, how I showed kind of the bar chart goes up and down. Sometimes there is 0 new revenues, or they call it a negative STIP. So let's say gas taxes, tank so badly, there's no new money. So what they do is whoever was not funded, they just move your shares out a couple more years, right? So if you're not funded, that funding really can be at the very kind of best case scenario in an economic downturn kind of moved out, or just kind of like wiped out. So it's really, from a programming perspective and looking at the whole system of what we're doing, I recommend spending the state and federal money first, and then figuring out how we're going to deliver all these projects with all of the funding sources that we have. So I don't recommend not programming it, but it is an option, and it is an option that's been exercised in the past. And if you can go back. And that's it for my kind of discussion on the STIP. So we have, as I mentioned, after the admin money, it's just under under 16 million available. We need to go out to public review with what we propose to do with the STIP before we submit it to the CTC. And so that's the direction that we're seeking in our meeting today. Happy to take any questions. I know it might have been a lot.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was great. I just want to just underscore what she said. So this is an excellent time to address any questions that you have. If there's any information or clarification that you need, this will be the action that's on the agenda later today is essentially to direct staff as to which option or version of an option that you would like us to prepare the draft STIP proposal or RTIP proposal for you all to adopt in November. So there isn't an action to adopt or to take action to solidify. It's how should we prepare that document in November. That is what will be the basis for our submittal to the CTC. And it has to be in November because the CTC deadline is before our December board meeting. So if there's any questions about what was presented or anything maybe that we didn't present before we move on to transit, we're happy to answer them at this time. Actually, Elizabeth is happy to answer them at this time.
All right, are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, can I move on to the next topic? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you, next slide, please? Thank you. Let's all look at the pretty buses. We kick this one off. Okay, so we, next slide, please, are going to talk about SB 125, TERSIP, and ZSIP, which is essentially new state funding for transit that was provided just this summer. So we are trying to roll it out and get a good proposal together. Another really tight timeline provided, but you don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? So this is good money to us, and we're going to figure out the best and most impactful way to spend it. So essentially, SB 125 and this funding is two different funding types. It's the Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program, or what you hear us call as TERSIP. It's traditionally been a competitive program, but this particular legislation created a formula-based allocation. There's $4 billion statewide. It's being distributed on a population-based formula, and it's intended for transit operations and capital improvements. And it's being paired with a new program that's called the Zero Emission Transit Capital Program, or ZSIP. There's a little more than $1 billion statewide. It's also being distributed by a population-based formula in addition to a second formula that's based on revenues, and it's intended more specifically for zero emission transit equipment and operations. So the one thing I'll mention here that's underscored in green is that this is a new program. This is a new, I don't want to say necessarily a new role, but this is brand new to the regional transportation planning agencies. So these funds are being distributed to the MCAGs of the state. And they're saying this is a new role. It's a 4-year funding program, and they're basically saying, okay, MCAGs of the state, all across the state of California, you need to work with your transit operators, and you need to put together your project list, your financial plan, all of this to determine how these funds are going to be used in your region, and have that done by December. So it's, again, a little bit of a heavy lift. I will say that while it is going to be a significant program to be administered for our planning team, we are really in a better shape than a lot of our colleagues, because we have both of our bus transit agencies under the same roof and in this one boardroom, which makes it a little easier. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the program objectives. TERSIP, as it was originally designed, was to fund capital improvements really meant to modernize our state transit systems, and it was all the things we've been hearing about: reducing GHG, expanding and improving our services and increasing ridership, integrating rail with bus, including high speed, improving transit safety, all the things we have been trying to do for some time. This legislation provides supplemental TERSIP, like I said, not competitive, but formula, along with this new ZSIP net SIP, and it adds on top of all of those other objectives, also looking to prevent service cuts and increasing ridership, prioritizing the availability of transit in transit-dependent communities, which we are, and then also making sure that we're prioritizing the use of these funds where there's a significant percentage of our ridership. So services that are really reaching the majority of our transit riders. Okay, next slide, please. I'm not going to read all of this for you, but I want to, because this is an MCAG item, because it's with the MPA or with the RTPA, I want to both highlight not just what the program's going to do, but what MCAG's role is here. I already mentioned that the state gave us a fairly tight timeline of December 31st for our submittal, and but you can see the list of what we have to accomplish, not just in figuring out where we want and how we want to spend these funds in our region and between our operators, but you can see the amount of data that we have to compile for each operator that would be in our submission package. This includes also developing a regional short-term financial plan that demonstrates all of the bulleted items. It's a really heavy lift, and a bit of a preview with the boards after the introduction to this item this month and leading into next month. We've already reached out to Stantec, who is doing the agency's zero emission transition, the rollout plan, a lot of the technical work around what our system needs to be able to go to zero emission, and we will be requesting the board consider an extension to their contract to assist us with this technical compilation of data between now and December, because it's pretty heavy. And then just listing too, as the years go on, we're also going to be responsible at MCAG for keeping ridership data on a website, making sure that this information is being provided to the public, annual reports to CalSTA to talk about the progress and deliverables, and then we'll also be responsible to manage the capital projects and reporting that come out of the program. So let's talk about what we can do with it. So MCAG's funding allocation is $33.5 million over 4 years. You can see that it's divided by year and also by funding type. So there are some nuances about what we can do when and which projects would be funded by what pot. But at the end of the day, we're working with $33.5 million for transit. Next slide, please. I'm going to walk through these in the next slide, so you don't have to memorize this slide, but I wanted to just show kind of at a glance that we're talking about 12 different kind of line items that are largely between the bus and YARTS, with some Amtrak and ACE connections or implications. And you'll also see that the total cost is just shy of $40 million. So there's with our SB 125 funding at 33, we're assuming about a $6 million local contribution from other funds. Many of which these are things these are goal projects that when I said, ask the transit team, Adam and Jose and Nav to say, let's we already know what we want to do. We know what projects need to be done. We know what some of our longstanding goals are. Let's put some dollars around what those things could cost. So a lot of the funding that we can assume to be going towards the $6 million supplement is for stuff that we would have been paying through our normal budget process. So it's actually basically bringing our dreams up about 10 years probably in some of these instances, but we can walk through them very quickly. Next slide, please. I mentioned the program administration. There is some language that I understand in the final guidelines that just got adopted, I think like the 1st of October or maybe the end of September. But it basically says there's I think it's 20%, 5% of the ZETSIP allocation, and there's some other technical language, but basically we're capped at what we could take for administration, but we've calculated it in with an estimate here. So the first, you'll see, because of these funding sources, a really big emphasis on zero emission. That's really what this funding is intended to help drive, along with increasing and improving ridership and all of the rest. What we're proposing is to dedicate $5 million to the battery electric charging infrastructure that we need at our operations and maintenance facility to help with the transition of our fleet to zero emission. You all know I got my email yesterday that we're ready to roll out our first zero emission, our battery electric bus on the 1st of November. So this is to help with the infrastructure on our facility to continue with those investments. The third project is a West Side operations and maintenance facility. So for the bus, as you know, we have one operations and maintenance facility. It's in Merced. We do not have a place to store our buses on the West Side. We rent spaces at a what is it, a storage unit facility. We don't have a way to, we don't have property that we can put charging infrastructure. That would be a way to reduce our VMT if we're able to keep our microtransit fleet and do some maintenance on the West Side. So essentially, be able to develop a West Side facility that can serve all of these needs and purposes as the services grow. And so we have $8 million established here, and that would include basically from land acquisition as far as we could go all the way to construction, assuming other funds if needed. Okay, next slide, please. Project 4 is something similar, but it's for YARTS. YARTS does not own its own operations and maintenance facility. We operate year-round here in Merced on Highway 140. It is using as a partner or a shared, a renter of the operations and maintenance facility that the bus owns. That space is already very, very tight. And for the longevity of the YART service, it's been a longstanding goal to establish a operations and maintenance facility for it. We would look to use $2 million of these funds as seed money for potentially a TERSIP grant application for the competitive funds or some other funding source. I could see this really being an excellent partnership with some of our rail partners who are really excited about the throughway services we can provide with YARTS as our rail services continue. Okay, project 5 and 6 I'll take together. It's really about microtransit service expansion. So right now our microtransit services are only operating on the West Side. They have been very successful. We have in our short range transit plan, and as we've been talking about kind of what's the next step, it's to expand our microtransit services onto the East Side where we need to address either more service or to provide better service in some areas where fixed route either isn't operating or maybe isn't as effective as we'd like it to be. So, well, not effective. It's not as utilized maybe, or maybe it can't operate in a way that makes it an efficient use for transit in those regions. So 5 and 6 look at dedicating $4.2 million to expand now these are over the course of the 4-year program to have microtransit operate in Atwater and in East and South Merced. And that's again with the goal of increasing ridership. And then just a little more than $2 million to purchase the vehicles necessary to implement that expansion of microtransit. And item 7 and 8 have really where we're starting to dip our toe into hydrogen. Our ICT plan, or the zero emission transition plan that is that we're working on with Stantec, the conclusion is really coming around this concept of having a hybrid transit system where we're going to be in battery electric and in hydrogen. So project 7 is to develop a hydrogen fueling station and have facility compliance at our operations and maintenance facility. This would currently serve both the bus and YARTS. And even as we look at the opportunity to establish YARTS as its own facility, we're looking at property, we're looking at concepts that would have it be almost like a little compound, trying to find property that would be nearby so that the partnership between the YARTS and the bus can still have those efficiencies, but establish YARTS on its own, which it hasn't been able to do yet. So in this instance, we'd be developing the hydrogen infrastructure to support the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles for both the YARTS fleet and the bus, estimated cost at $5.6 million. And then project 8 is the purchase of the hydrogen fleet when those fleet replacements are scheduled for the bus. Project 9 is something we've been working with CalStart, talking to them for a few months now about wanting to do a zero emission demo project for YARTS. The challenge with YARTS, I guess I should say, we've identified that the Highway 140 service is the best corridor to do a demo. It's where our operations and maintenance facilities are right now. It's where we operate year-round service. And so we had initially talked about doing a hydrogen pilot with them. There are currently, as I understand, no hydrogen coach buses being produced, but at our YARTS workshop on Monday, talking to CalStart, they're really interested in actually talking to manufacturers about like a true pilot of demoing one of the first hydrogen coaches with YARTS on the 140. So this would be seed money for that partnership with CalStart and any other funding opportunities that we could leverage. Almost done. Okay, Project 10. Project 10 and 11 are two items that I have talked with Dan Levitt about and very extensively. I know several board members have been interested in these as well. Amtrak, they are going to be going out to bid to do a throughway service from Merced to, I guess that's the South Bay, so like the Gilroy area, San Jose area. They are not going to be operating on a schedule that would serve commuters. Its purpose is not intended to be a commuter service over the hill. So in talking with Dan Levitt, this is preliminary, but we were with him at a retreat not that long ago, and I talked about, rather than us get into the business of operating this, the trying to develop the concept of us funding an additional route that would run a commuter schedule. So they're going to be operating the service, but we would potentially be funding a route to start in Merced earlier, go through Los Banos, and so that it could support the commuter population that's going over the hill. Dan was excited about the partnership, so this would be the right kind of funding to help get a program like that started. And then the second for Project 11 is the ACE bus bridge program. So I will say that rail partners, both ACE and High Speed Rail, are having a lot of really active conversations in other counties about how to leverage some of these dollars in those regions for rail projects. And so when I got the call from Dan Levitt, he and I and Elizabeth and the other COG directors were going to be up at a retreat that week. And so I sat with him and talked to him about it. And the first words out of his mouth is, he's like, the bus bridge, that should be the project that we partner on. And I said, it's already in our draft. So he was really excited to see that we were proposing this bus bridge program. And it's essentially utilizing, it would be the bus providing service, we already do on the T route up to Turlock, but to providing bus service to connect to ACE when ACE is operating out of Stanislaus County. So until ACE makes it to Merced, the concept would be we would have a bus bridge getting our residents connected to ACE in Stanislaus County via the bus. And then the last is a concourse redesign at the Merced Transpo Center. So this is also with the bus. We have it as $200,000, really just looking at the need to, and this is a bit of a goal. It's a little up in the air only because, the Transpo is owned by the city of Merced. We're also been meeting with the City of Merced and the High Speed Rail Authority about the design of the shared rail station and how we are going to ensure a seamless transition for a rider who's getting off of the bus and onto a train, or off of a train and onto a bus. And does that mean that we stay at the Transpo? Does that mean that we're built into the rail station? So those conversations are all still very, very fluid. But absent us being fully integrated into the rail station, and maybe even if we are fully integrated into the rail station, what does that mean for the Transpo, and it's all one big footprint that we're trying to figure out. This $200,000 is saying, if we have a continued existence at the Transpo and in partnership, of course, with the city, needing to just redesign how the concourse operates to enhance the safety of our buses and and the pedestrians and our passengers, but all of it within the context of that ultimate alignment with the adjacent rail station. So that's a bit of a placeholder, and I just wanted to caveat that it's a need that, you know, our team had identified some time ago, but it's really kind of at the end of it all because we first need to know and have some decisions that are set with the station area design, which, you know, we're part of. So those are the 12 project uses that we are proposing. In terms of next steps, so at today's meeting, I'm not going to go through all of it at the level I just did, but I will do a preview probably with the table that was in my presentation. We are seeking feedback from the board either here now or then on just basically the first blush of like, what do you think about where we're going on this journey of $33 million of funding. And then in November, we will be asking the board to essentially adopt, bless our list of projects and direct us to develop the financial plan. I had mentioned, you know, that because of the technical data and a lot of the work that we have to get done, but in a very short time, that Stantec, who's on board with us to do the zero emission transition plan, if we'll be bringing a contract amendment to the board to get some additional support for them to use the methodologies and the calculations that we have to have that go into our submittal, and all of that will culminate with a request for the board to adopt the submittal package on the 21st of December so that we can turn around and submit it by the December 31st deadline. And I think the last slide is just pretty. There it is. And this is kudos to Marissa Bravo on our PIO team. This is not Highway 140. It is Highway 395, 120. It's technically 120, but coming up over the Tioga Pass, I think that's Tenaya Lake. So, and one of our new yards buses that is shiny. All right. And that's the end of my presentation. So if council, can I answer questions here on this now? Yeah. Okay. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
I know it's a lot.
Does anybody from the public have any questions?
A lot of work.
Okay.
I could ask a few, Josh.
Do you want to?
We could.
Go ahead.
Mike's looking at me like make it quick. No, just a few. I mean, a couple thoughts. You know, just given a lot of the and again, me being no expert, just sort of the state of the industry on electric buses and how fast those are in transition, and a lot of the issues. You know, us going with such a big investment into the electric infrastructure. Obviously, that's where the state's going. Obviously, you know, we have to probably have no choice but to align with that. But I think just given the complexities and some of the things, I think we got to be really thoughtful. You know, as much as if we were going to wade big into that space. A lot of really good work on there too. A really good program. A lot of good thoughts. I think the Transpo Center, it just improved, and that's obviously a lot of that's a big part on the city. But you know, I think you're really on the right track in terms of just that gets cleaned up, more attractive. That's a big incentive to transit riders. Just driving by the other day, there are a lot of people out front too. So I think a common complaint is the condition of that building, and obviously it's more of an issue for the owner than it is for this board. But I think the condition of that will help really increase ridership. And just, yeah, overall, a lot of good projects. But I think, you know, there's certainly, it's a lot of money, so we got to be really smart here. We got to educate ourselves. You know, you guys have done great work, and we need to get this right. So just a few thoughts. I like the Los Banos, I defer to West Side colleagues, but, you know, the commuter routes over the hill, I think, are so important, too. There's such an infrastructure already built up with, you know, with other companies, with you know, with employers in Silicon Valley, with you know, other transit agencies in in the Silicon Valley area, where if we can just, get folks to those places where the companies come, where the other transit authorities are, then I think there's a lot we can do to improve connectivity over Highway 152. That's it, and especially with gas where it is now, it's a big service to our population, our commuters to have that. That's it.
Was there a question somewhere in there? Or?
No, we're asking. Well, sort of. That's good direction. We're asking for comments and for thoughts, and that's all.
Anybody else? Okay, I see no other questions, so
Get a 10-minute break.
we get a 10-minute break. Okay, because we have directors participating still on Zoom, is Scott still there? He doesn't know how to fold. Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. As we've now concluded the workshop, I'd like to call this regular meeting of the MCAG Governing Board to order. The time is 3:07. May we please have a roll call?
Director Espinoza. Director Hoag.
Here.
Director Serrato.
Here.
Director McDaniel. Director Samra.
Here.
Director Nagy.
Here.
Director Nelson.
Here.
Director Pereira. Director Silvera. Director Silvera.
Can we mark him as here, or does he have to actually?
He's making his bed.
Yes.
His mic is on.
Oh, what's he doing?
Director Severo, your mic is
Are you
on.
guys trying to get a hold of me?
Yes.
Yeah, are you here?
Director Silvera.
Delay, that's what.
Can you say here?
There's a delay in Zoom, that's what it is.
Director Silvera, we're calling roll. Could you please announce your presence?
With authority.
You guys are muted.
We are muted.
There we go.
Director Silvera.
Present.
Director Yanes.
Here.
And he, at the end of the day, he got us.
Director Yanes.
He said here.
I'm here.
Chair Pedroso.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, we don't have anybody to do the invocation, so we'll go ahead and skip that and move on to the pledge. If you can lead me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Item number 5 is the approval of the agenda. Do any of the directors or the executive director have any comments on the agenda?
None for me. Nope.
Anybody from the public? Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, moved by Mr. Nagy, second by Serrato. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Director Espinoza. Director Hoag.
Yes.
Director Serrato.
yes.
Director McDaniel.
Aye.
Director Samra.
Yes.
Director Nagy.
Aye.
Director Nelson.
Yes.
Director Pereira. Director Silvera.
Aye.
Director Yanes.
Yes.
Chair Pedroso.
Yes.
Okay, the next item is public comment. Public comment is now open for anyone to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, and comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Does anybody from the public wish to provide comments?
Good afternoon, Chairman Pedroza and the board. Kristan Santos here, representing the office of Congressman John Duarte. The Congressman would just like to express his personal gratitude for the opportunity to meet Caltrans Director Tony Tavares during the MCAG tour and discussion at Castle in August. I also had the opportunity to meet with Director McDaniel and members of the Merced County team to discuss the generational impact of that historic $49.6 million CalSTA grant. I also want to express my gratitude for the hospitality shown to my transportation infrastructure legislative aide, William Alquist. It was actually his first time in California, and he really got to get a lay of the land and learn about the projects that we're discussing here in Merced County when it comes to vital, needed infrastructure. Also, going around and going to city council meetings, I can see that we're already starting our preparations for the MCAG One Voice meeting. We're incredibly glad to have you back in May. We're so glad to see preparations starting now for the next visit in 2024. We can't wait to discuss these quality of life changing, vital infrastructure projects from Merced County, and of course you all have my contact information. I'll be more than happy to provide anyone else from the legislative team in DC that you might need. And I can't stay for too long because apparently I've been getting a direct order. It is my 27th birthday, and there's apparently a red velvet cake back at the office with my name on it. So thank you for your time this afternoon.
Yes, I was going to say, you spoke too long because it's your birthday, so happy birthday. All right.
Most mature 27.
Okay, anybody else?
Excuse me while I
Anybody else wish to any public comment? Anybody online? I see Renee, but that's for the, yeah, okay. Okay. Item 7 is reports and presentations, and we have 2. We will start with the Citizens Advisory Committee report, which will be provided by Renee.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair and Directors. Megan Trent with the Citizens Advisory Committee. So glad to report that we all met Friday, October 6th at 8:30 a.m. And we had quorum this time. We actually had a meeting we haven't had in several months, so that was pretty exciting news. Glad to see most of the folks in person. Staff presented the MCAG and TJPA action information discussion items to the committee. All action items were approved as presented by staff. Items that generated discussion included the transportation planning and Measure B monthly update. Looks like there's unmet transit needs outreach, like curriculum going on right now too. So information's out in person hearings, over the phone and online as well too. So glad to hear that's underway. And also happy to report we elected a new chair. So I'm stepping down as vice chair, but looks like Militia Science Tiara was elected as chair for this next fiscal year. And correct me if I'm wrong, Stacy, but I believe she is with MCOE in our education industry. So she's been on for quite some time.
You are correct.
And the monthly update for TJPA looks like the free fares ended for fixed routes in the microbus. And we got a lot of great feedback from the committee members, and we look forward to that program in operation next year as well too. And last but not least, I recognize one of our outgoing members, Ursula Stock. She's one of our citizens at large. She's moving away from the region. She was on the committee for several years, so we wished her farewell and best of luck where she's moving to. And if we can have an ask, when you guys are out doing your community activities, we are in need of filling several vacancies. I believe there's 7 of them. Feel free, send them over to staff. We do need the help to continue filling for them for the Citizens Advisory Committee. That's all, and thank you. Good afternoon.
Anybody have any questions for Renee? Thank you, Renee. All right, and now we'll move on to the Caltrans report. I see Marlon here, who's apparently going to drop the mic when he leaves.
Thank you, board members, Mr. Chair, Madam Director, Just like to give a brief update from Caltrans. Director Dennis Agar gives his regards. He could not make it today. He's actually down in Madera County for the CTC meeting, California Transportation Commission. But I did want to give some brief updates from Caltrans. Not too many this month, but I do want to mention, first of all, we did receive some great news recently regarding the Clean California Local Grant Program Cycle 2. And we know that, of course, the Cycle 1, the City of Modesto, or excuse me, City of Merced, had received some great funding for that, for the art installations, which we're very proud of. But for this Cycle 2, there was a recent award announcement. And we did receive 3 awards in District 10. One of those in City of Modesto, one of those in Calaveras County. But the one we're really happy about is in Merced County, of course, near Dos Palos in O'Banion Park. $2.89 million was awarded to the county for this park renovation. So I just want to thank the board for putting this forth, especially Director Silvera. Appreciate you reaching out to Caltrans and just showing interest in that program. We very much appreciate the partnership. So very happy that County of Merced was able to get this grant program award. And just so you guys know, there was actually $100 million available, and it was very competitive. 230 applications received. So it's one of the most competitive programs that we have in the state right now. So just the fact that the County of Merced was able to get an award in such a competitive program does speak volumes. So just want to highlight that award for the county. Let's see here. And we also do have our another grant program, our Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program. This is a program we have every single year, and we actually just did have our workshop this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Hopefully some folks were able to attend that, but we will be taking applications and proposals until January 18th of 2024. So just want to make sure our partners are aware of that. And this is, again, for our Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program. $25 million. We have it split up into different pots. $29.5 million, almost $30 million available in our Sustainable Communities Grants Program, and the Climate Adaptation Planning Grant Program, which we don't know if this will be the last time we get to announce this program, but right now there's $31.9 million available for this program for climate adaptation. So if you guys are interested, if you have any partners that are interested, feel free to contact myself or Tom Dumas. We'll be happy to share any additional information. Oh, and I also forgot to mention the Strategic Partnerships Grant, which does have $4.5 million as well. The other thing I wanted to mention was SB1 Cycle 4. We are starting to evaluate if there's any opportunities for partnerships around our district. So we have been reaching out to all of our partners. So Madam Director, you probably did receive an email from us, from our investment planning manager, Sylvia Dyack, requesting any opportunities for partnerships for the Solutions for Congested Corridors program and for the Trade Corridors Enhancement program. And we are also looking at potential partnerships for the Active Transportation program, ATP Cycle 7. If there is any interest, please do let us know as soon as possible. We do want to make sure that we are able to plan accordingly as we develop our application proposals. So just want to share that. And the last thing I wanted to mention also is we do have our State Route 99 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan workshop tomorrow afternoon. And this is at, I believe, 2 p.m. And that's going to be on Zoom. If you don't have the invite and you'd like to attend, just let me know. This is intended to be agency type meeting, but it will be particularly regarding future managed lanes potential component. So looking for a good workshop, looking for good participation. If you have any interest in that, let me know. I'm happy to share that with you. And I think that concludes my updates. In terms of mic drop, I will not be dropping the mic, but I do want to mention to the board, this will be my last meeting in the foreseeable future. I will be going to another office closer to home. But I will say it's just been great working with the MCAG board. You guys, I know you guys really care about your communities, and it's really great to work with folks that care so much. And it's been an honor and pleasure, so I just want to thank you guys. And I'm happy to take any questions, concerns, and you guys still have my email address, so feel free to email me. I'm happy to support you in my new role. Thanks.
We have Scott, too.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and start with Scott, and then we'll just come around.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marlon, I can't say thank you enough. I know that I appreciate, we advocate for these projects, but having you inside Caltrans advocating alongside of us, it means the world to us. And so I'm thankful for you, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck in your new role, and just know you have a friend here in Merced County.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate it.
Director McDaniel.
Thank you, Marlon. I expressed the same thing. It seemed like before, whenever we make a comment to Caltrans, it would sound like it was unheard. But whenever we tell you, you'd pick it up, you'd carry it, and you could give us each detail. And in that, I do have a question. When will 99 be finished? I mean, we have folks coming to the Board of Supervisors now to us, and they understand it's Caltrans, but they're coming to us, asking us to advocate. Do we have, because the rumor is that this current project ran out of money?
The current project, you mean the current project that's ongoing right now on 99?
Yes, through Merced.
Yeah, that's a pavement rehabilitation project. We did have some issues with construction. We've been working that out, and we've had a gracious partner in the city as well that's been very gracious in letting us know where we can improve upon. But at the same time, this project, I don't believe there's more than 8 months left in the project. But we know that there's a longer-term State Route 99 improvement that we're all looking forward to, and that is part of the comprehensive multimodal corridor plan effort. So that's something that we're actively engaged with MCAG team on. So we're going to keep that momentum, but this current job, it's less than a year away from completion. So.
Okay. And are you going to keep your same cell phone number?
I will.
So
I will send you my revised, but the email will stay the same.
Because as we're going through LA, we have somebody to complain to.
Of course. Send it my way.
Thank you, Marlon. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Director.
Director Serrato.
Thank you, Josh. Marlon, the northbound 99 project between Livingston and Delhi, it seems like that's nearing completion. There's been some progress opening the third lane. Could you share a little bit on that?
Yes. Generally speaking, and I don't have the exact dates right now, Director Serrato, but that project also is very much close to completion. I don't expect that to be much longer than this project here in Merced. So I would think by this time next year, that project will be complete as well.
Yeah, great project there. You can see the difference driving through, and it opens up traffic. So thank you for all your work, and yeah, we'll miss you. So thanks again for everything. You've been a gentleman, a true professional, and it's been an honor. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Director.
Director Hogue.
Thank you. Good luck, Marlon. I do have, however, thank you for all your help. An issue. This summer we had a horrific accident on 33 right past Valeria, where two people hit head on. One issue, I think, was because of lighting. The people didn't have their headlights on, and they couldn't see the car because it was so dark. So the other day we had a town hall meeting for the first time in a while, and one of the huge complaints was 33 in Valeria. People are requesting that we either have a line for people to walk, like a pedestrian crossing, and perhaps lighting, and I don't know who's in charge of lighting, but that is the darkest area right there. Or maybe a turnout or something. It's just a really dangerous intersection right there because people can't see pulling out onto 33. And it's right where town starts.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if we could have it on the county side or Caltrans side, but if somebody could look into maybe painting a stripe, making it reflective. Maybe the paint could be reflective. Something to show people that there is a turnout there where people are pulling out in front of you.
Okay.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
And Director, just a quick question on that. For both pedestrians and vehicular motorists, or specifically for pedestrians? Okay, for both. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Director Pereira, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you. Well, congratulations. You know, when I hear you say I'm moving closer to home, you know, that's we're going to miss you, but I get it, right? And so I hope you do well. Similar position down there?
Same position.
Same, yeah. So who's your replacement?
TBD. That will be announced shortly. I'm sure Dennis will make some announcements to partners.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a request.
Sure.
Well, actually, the mayor from Gustine and I do. There was a pedestrian that was hit, and I had brought this up, I think, about a year ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's in the works still or if we kind of lost track of it. But there's 3 intersections on Highway 33, 140 through Gustine that could use improved crosswalks. You know, maybe the flashing signs. There was a pedestrian hit there Friday night, which kind of brought this back to our attention. So there's one is at 5th and 5th. Well, it's 5th and Grove at Highway 33, 140.
Okay.
Probably the most important one, and then 3rd Avenue at 33 and 140. That's where this pedestrian was hit Friday night.
Okay.
And then the last one is Linden Avenue at Highway 33, 140.
Okay, and Linden, okay.
Highway 33 is kind of a
Troublemaker. Yeah.
Well, we will look into that. Director, I'm not quite sure if we had noted that previously, but we'll definitely look and see if we've already done an investigation. I know, of course, we have a project very close to there, so
Right, yeah.
we'll definitely look into that. Thanks, Director.
And then how, will this be passed on to somebody else in your office now, or will it go to your replacement?
Well, it most likely will go to the appropriate division, and that person is still there. So don't worry, this will not get lost. Yeah.
Thank you.
You got it.
Yeah, congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Director.
I accidentally skipped over Director Yanez.
That's all right. I'm not going anywhere. So first, I just want to say congratulations and thank you. You've been so responsive to everything. So whoever it is that's TBD, they have big shoes to fill. So I did have a question, though, on Highway 152 regarding the outskirts, I guess, of the city as it moves forward into lighting on 152, particularly Badger Flat, Walmart, and out toward the college. Just 4 days ago, we had a vehicle traveling westbound on 152 and turned its lights off, attempted to move off to the shoulder and was rear-ended, and the driver was killed. And so I know that lighting in that area has been a concern, and we're starting to get some emails about that.
Thank you, Director. We'll definitely look into that. That's very critical. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks, Marlon. You know, I'm still a little bitter about you leaving, but as soon as you said that it was for family, to be close to family, I understand that. So just want to say thanks if I haven't done that enough. You've been great to work with, and this is the first I've heard your cell phone will change. So if I don't get your new cell phone number, I'm going to take it very personally. So I will see you at all the conferences and get it there. But just thank you. You've been excellent to work with. When is your official last day?
On paper, it's the 1st, but, you know, if you guys need me, I'm here. I'm not, you know.
Well, I'll see you at Focus in a
Yes.
couple weeks. All right. Thank you.
Yes, you got it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things. It's a test before you go on the 1st, okay? See how quickly you can get this done. Currently, off of Sultana, northbound, there's a 4-way stop. But on a southbound, coming up of Peach, there isn't. As traffic has been increasing, it is kind of difficult for people. There's been people have been raising concerns, so if we can maybe pass it on to see if there's a possibility of a 4-way stop over there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have our traffic operations team look into that if the 4-way stop is.
Yeah, they've had the one for northbound for years and years now, but south is starting to become busy too.
So northbound and southbound?
No, going, if you get off 99 into Sultana, there's a four-way stop. So but if you're coming off of Peach and trying to get onto 99 off of Peach, there is no four-way stop there.
Right.
And the way it curves, sometimes it's difficult and people don't see it, and sometimes there's a truck behind, whatever. So it's just something to kind of look into, you know?
Yeah, we can definitely look into that.
And then also V Street.
V or B?
V in here, Merced.
Okay. Oh, that one.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah, I'm sure you know, you know. Is it? I notice every time I kind of drive by and others that they've been doing some work and there was a little pause there for a while for whatever reason. Is there a completion date on that by any chance to where the ramp will be opened up?
Oh, for the ramp, well, that will be at the end of the construction job, so that's a couple months away. But I know we have a traffic investigation at that location based on the request from Director Serrato and Director Pereira. So I think that's going to be wrapping up in the next several weeks. So we should have some opportunity to figure out what's the best improvement for that intersection, because we know it's a very critical intersection.
Thank you.
Director Nelson.
Just want to say congratulations and best of luck to you.
Thank you, Director.
And Director Nagy.
Well, last but not least.
No, I haven't gone yet.
No, thank you for everything you've done for us. You've, like everyone else has said, there's going to be some big shoes to fill taking your place. You've been very receptive. You've been a great ally for us in being a liaison to the higher ups of Caltrans. You've listened and responded, and I know we all appreciate it very much and wish you the best of luck. But, you know, I thought we were your family.
Well, yeah, that's true.
And then on a somber note, it was the gentleman that was hit, it was Saturday night. He was knocked into the oncoming lane and then run over a second time.
Oh, gosh.
And on Friday night, we had a head-on collision out on 140 by the airport that claimed 3 lives, including a 3-month-old baby. So, and put several more people in the hospital, drunk driver and head-on. So, bad weekend for Gustine.
Absolutely.
Well, you saved the best for last, Pat. Not the, yeah, just kidding. Okay.
Well, wait, we didn't get from Mary Michael and.
Oh. Okay, I'm going to start with the bad and then I'll start with the good. I know that it's been brought up before multiple times, but I just want to, I mean, what Director McDaniel said is pretty, I mean, he's spot on. We had somebody in our meeting on Tuesday provide public comment just asking the question about 99. I guarantee you, if there was Caltrans employees that were driving southbound 99 every day, it would take a lot less time than 8 months. It's Space Mountain at night over there. I'm serious. It's narrow. You can't see anything. All of a sudden it turns. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. 8 months is not okay. That's just, it's, you know, I'm looking at your website here. Goals, safety first. Not true. Cultivate excellence. Obviously, there's something lacking there. Advance equity and livability in all communities. We don't have people that drive 99 anymore because, number one, you can't get on or off of 99 anywhere. It's really splitting up this community, and I hope you guys understand that. I mean, this is not acceptable. There was 4 accidents within like 4 days. I mean, and it stops traffic and CHP asked me about it. Another state agency, and they asked Caltrans for help, and Caltrans said no. They said, we can't, they said, can you guys just move that rail a little bit so we can get our people out there? They couldn't do it. They said they wouldn't do it. They have Red Cross on speed dial in case they need to take them food or water or something, because they're stuck. A guy was stuck for 4 hours, decided to take a nap in his vehicle because nothing was happening. And the CHP came and said, hey, the traffic's about to move, you need to wake up. 4 hours, not moving. It's not acceptable. And I know it's not your fault. This is what we're hearing from our constituents. So I please pass that on. Positive, Thank you very much. You've been. How's that for a transition? Yeah, you've been very helpful to us with our questions. You come to our meetings, and I know that you're very engaged. You listen to us, and you really truly work with us, and so it's like a partnership. And I really appreciate everything that you do. And when they told us, I think it was Scotty and Darren told us that you were leaving, I was like, well, now what's going to happen? So it's like, is Caltrans now going to move slower? Just kidding. But thank you. Best of luck. And it's cool that you're going to be able to be close to your family. So again, thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your comments regarding 99 are well taken. We do understand. I do understand the frustration and just the comments and the concerns that you guys get at the board level, and we take that very seriously. I'm going to continue to reiterate this, convey this desire and these concerns to our construction team and our deputy district director and our director. So I know that they are very focused on this, but I also will make sure that they hear the latest comments from the MCAG board. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong street in Merced. I meant to say 16th.
Okay.
Off ramp, not V Street.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry about that. If you can, you know what the date is on that one, the 16th?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And just to Supervisor Pedrosa's point too, I think just based on my day to day and what I hear, the 99 issue has become the top issue in the city of Merced. It's jumped homelessness and jumped everything else. So it's probably significantly probably the number one issue right now in the city. So just that. That's it. But again, thanks. I'm gonna get back, circle back. I'm gonna send you back on a positive note. But we got everybody up here. Obviously, you're not going to get the kind of love you get from this board or the grief from anywhere else. So we appreciate you very much, and thanks for everything you've done, Mark.
Likewise. Thank you.
We're preparing you.
I just want to, since we're talking about the 99, Marlon knows this, so I'm just saying it more for the record, is, I get a lot of these same calls, as you know, and I hear this too, Marlon, and I try to keep those dates in my brain, and I can't hold on to them. So I'll reissue that schedule that I have from our latest partnership meeting to the board with the dates of closures and anticipated opening and all of that. But I just want to make sure that we're keeping sight of two things. One is this maintenance project, or maintenance projects that are happening right now that I think are causing, obviously, the biggest, I don't know, I say heartburn, safety issues. And I can appreciate that Caltrans is limited by the laws of physics about how you can try to improve on a roadway and still have it be a functioning roadway when you're limited by bridges and all of the other things. So I think, but that doesn't mean obviously that there has to be any kind of a trade-off to safety. It's about how can Caltrans do its job in the safest way, getting the job done, the best job that it can be done in the quickest time without jeopardizing the integrity of the project or the safety of the people. So that's a heavy lift. But I also want to make sure that we aren't just, that we as a board, you as a board, I as your staff, aren't just talking about this immediate safety issue with these maintenance projects, but also, as Marlon said, what's the ultimate fix? This is maintenance, and we have the capacity problem that is the bigger long-term safety issue. The longer term, I shouldn't say bigger. It's the longer term safety issue. So, my whatever we can do to help be the conveyor of more information during this difficult construction period for these maintenance projects. I just want to make sure that the board is also kind of keeping cite on obviously the most immediate safety solutions that we can do, because there are people's lives that are literally ending on the 99 right now, but also then not skipping a beat or losing momentum around the longer term solution that's going to create a safer corridor for our truck drivers and our transit buses and our residents with the capacity increasing. So, okay. Thank you. Because when I hear when's 99 going to be done, in my mind, I'm like, never. But because I don't want it to just be about these maintenance issues, it's the longer term, and that is a long-term project. So
Finish the 99.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for being here in person.
All right.
You're more handsome in person.
Just a brief second, Marlon, I can't top that, so thank you for everything. But for posterity and for the purposes of the minutes, Director Silvera, could you please confirm that there are no individuals 18 or older in the room with you?
There are not.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 8 is information items. These items are included for informational purposes and will not be presented by staff unless board members have questions. Are there any questions for staff? Any questions from the public? Okay. Item 9 is the consent calendar, which has 7 items. These items may be acted on with one vote unless specifically removed for separate consideration by a member of the board, a member of staff, or a member of the public. Do any of the directors have questions for staff? Are there any comments from the public? Is there a motion to take action on these items?
Also moved.
Moved by Director McDaniel. Is there a second? Second by Director Samra. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Director Espinoza, Director Hoag,
Yes. Calendar. Yes, yes.
Director Serrato,
Yes.
Director McDaniel,
Yes.
Director Semra,
Yes.
Director Nagy,
Aye.
Director Nelson,
Yes.
Director Pereira,
Yes.
Director Silvera,
Aye.
Director Yanes,
Yes.
Chair Pedroso.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll now move on to Merced County Association of Governments action items. Item 10 are action items. These items will be presented one at a time by staff, and public comment will be available during the consideration of each item. Item 10A is a request to adopt the final Merced County water and sewer infrastructure capacity assessment. And we have Meg Prince.
Thank you. Good afternoon. In March 2022, the governing board approved the recommendation made by the report group.
Hold on a second. Try it again.
Testing?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. There we are. Okay. Thank you. In March 2022, the governing board approved a recommendation from the REAP work group to utilize a portion of MCAG's REAP 1 funds to conduct a water and sewer infrastructure capacity assessment for all 7 jurisdictions. Specifically, this report was intended to analyze if jurisdictions have enough water and sewer capacity to accommodate their projected housing need and provide data needed for the 6th cycle housing element update. MCAG contracted with MK and Associates to complete the assessment. Over the last year or so, they've been coordinating with jurisdictions to collect and analyze data and have completed the assessment, which has been reviewed by member jurisdictions. Miles Madrid with MK and Associates is attending virtually today, and we'll give a brief, I know this is a long agenda, so it's going to be a brief presentation with an overview of the assessment. And as I mentioned, this effort was funded with MCAG's REAP 1 funding, and the state requires that any planning document developed utilizing this funding must be formally adopted. So while this was really developed more for informational purposes for local jurisdictions, we are asking that the governing board adopt this report. And with that, I will hand it over to Miles for the presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present today. Go ahead and share my screen here. This should be popping up shortly. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get us started. My name is Miles Madrid, and I work for MCAG and Associates. And today I'll be going over our Merced County water and sewer infrastructure capacity assessment. So our initial infrastructure assessment objectives were to evaluate the existing water and sewer infrastructure, determine existing conditions and available excess capacities, and then estimate additional housing units that can be served with the existing capacity and infrastructure for each city, as well as identify projects to address existing system deficiencies. And in our initial research and data gathering phase, we attempted to get a hold of all planning documentation that we have here on the slide. And that was our basis of review, so going through all water master plans, sewer master plans to obtain the information that we were looking for. If there was anything that was missing from the documentation, we reached out directly to city planning staff or city engineers to sort of fill in the blanks for us.
Oh, sorry, Miles. This is Stacy in the room. Are you moving slides? Because we just see your opening slide.
I'm not sure why that's not going. How's that?
Yes, now we see your objectives and your research data. Okay, we're back to your objectives. Thanks.
Gotcha. Okay. So that summarized our objectives, and I do apologize that you weren't able to see the slides previously, but referencing the research and data gathering phase, again, just backtracking, we were attempting to locate all the documentation listed, whether that be through the city's respective websites or through in-person or virtual meetings. Like I said, the initial review was reviewing the sewer master plan, water master plan, and any other planning documentation, and then supplemental information was provided through these meetings with city planning staff or city engineers. So our original method of analysis was to base our assessment on just a review of the planning documents. However, during our review, we determined that a lot of the existing planning documents were either outdated or no longer relevant. That being, they weren't adopted by the cities themselves, or the analysis in those master plans were done using outdated general plans. And so through conversations with the cities, they just sort of acknowledged that the documents weren't something to fully rely upon. So in order to get better numbers, we conducted a desktop hydraulic analysis, which created a hydraulic model of each respective city, considering major corridors. So we could think of a skeletonized system for each city. Let me move on here so I can go to our approach. So once we read through the master planning documentation and developed the skeletonized hydraulic models, once again, this is sort of a backbone system, calculated water demands and sewer loads throughout the city, utilizing whether that be master planning document or information or conversations with city planning staff, defined growth scenarios. This was taken typically from the general plans, or if the city planning staff outright stated they had projected growth in a particular direction. And then we used the hydraulic model to analyze the capacity of the system under each respective growth scenario. So we loaded the system based on existing demands, whether that be water demand or sewer loads, and then we incrementally increased those loadings in the growth scenarios that we identified until the system failed, and that was our identified existing system capacity. And then using information from the general plans, like the gallons per capita, so that's per individual, and then the expected or average occupants per household, we were able to take that existing capacity, that existing additional capacity from the sewer or water infrastructure, and convert that into housing units. And then those housing units were then compared to the RHNA targets to see if through existing infrastructure they would be able to meet the RHNA targets. So I'll go ahead and run through the water infrastructure assessment first. And these numbers that you're seeing here are just a simple addition of all of the existing wells within each respective city added together. It's their capacities added together. So the first two lines there, the total capacity and firm capacity. Total is considering all wells online at all times. And then the firm is the capacity of the system with its largest well offline. It's a level of conservative assessment. And then the maximum day demand, which is pulled from planning documents. And then just through simple math, the total capacity status and firm capacity status is just the excess capacity if you're subtracting the maximum day demand from the capacities of those wells. So the red there, we could see that Atwater was in a marginal deficit when considering firm capacity. And then for Livingston, there was a marginal deficit with its entire system, and then another deficit noted when considering firm capacity as well. So using our assessment with the hydraulic model, this table here is going to show whether or not the city was able to achieve RHNA housing targets, and then in what scenario we determined was most efficient for the city. So going back to Atwater, we were able to maximize growth in the northern growth scenario. So that is focusing all of the existing or additional capacity in the northern direction. And in doing so, we were able to come up with a housing unit of 1,301. However, based on the RHNA housing targets, it did result in a deficit there. And Los Banos, the same. We could see that they were in a deficit of 1,910 as compared to their RHNA housing targets. So on to the sanitary sewer infrastructure assessment. A lot of the stuff that you're going to see is going to look very similar. However, the units are just transferred to meet sewer infrastructure. So what we're seeing here is each of the respective cities' wastewater treatment facility capacities. So that's their average day capacity. And then there's also a peak capacity that we considered. And this was compared to their average and peak daily loads. And then again, just simple math of subtraction and seeing if there was a surplus or a deficit. And then the numbers that you're seeing below that say surplus deficit equivalent housing units. So that is what was conducted through our hydraulic model analysis. And then this summarizes each of the respective cities' sewer loading analysis. What we're seeing here is that each city was able to meet their RHNA housing target through their sewer infrastructure. So through our conservative assessment, we didn't notice any deficiencies as far as meeting RHNA housing targets. Each city was okay. So we did round off our assessment with recommended projects. So if we did notice that there were areas where maybe there was pressure constraints or a particular pipe that was undersized, we did include that in our report. This is just a summary of some of the recommended projects that are included in the report. Of course, updating water and sanitary sewer master plans for all cities. As stated previously, they were all relatively old documents. So just getting those updated. There was a request or a note to update general plans for all cities except Los Banos because theirs was recently adopted, I believe, in 2022. Constructing new wells for most of the cities, and then a new tank in Los Banos. And then with this additional water consideration, we did note that there may be a need to perform additional studies for compliance with SGMA, just to prevent overdrafting of any basins. And then for the sewer side, we did recommend upgrades to wastewater treatment facilities for Atwater, Livingston, Hillmar, and Delhi. Although we did see that the cities were able to meet demands for any future growth and development, it was recommended to upgrade those systems. And then for each of the independent districts, updating their infrastructure master plans as well. We did review the community plans for each of the districts, but we did recommend updating those. And then in the report, we do have various improvement projects for each of the independent districts as well, constructing new wells, pipelines, sewer interceptors. That's all elaborated on in the report. So I will go ahead and pause here for any questions. That was very brief. I know that we're very strapped for time, so I'll pause.
Director Hogue.
Yes. Hi, Miles. This is April Hogue. I'm the mayor of Dos Palos. Did we not give any information for our city?
That is correct.
And why is that?
I'm sorry?
When did this start? We have a planning guy now that can help you with all of this, so just wondered why we didn't have anything there.
We did begin our outreach in around August of last year. We did have a few contacts at the city. There was a point in time I was able to speak with a few individuals. However, I wasn't able to obtain any documentation from them. So we continued our assessment, and as we were going through our assessment, we always sent an outreach request and just kind of checked in, but unfortunately we never got any documentation.
And just to clarify, I don't know, Miles, if you want to go back to the list of documents that were requested of each jurisdiction. And I know that your staff was responsive. It just sounded like they didn't have the information available.
An outdated housing plan, so that's what they're working on. But I mean, we know how much water we use and how much is going out. It sounds like that's pretty much due to the calculations. So I'll bring that up. I'll bring it up.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Pat.
Thank you. I had a couple questions. One, on the cities that you say need to add wells, which Gustine is one of those, was the capacity of that well figured in to your figures of what the capacity is?
So in our hydraulic model, we did reach out to the city engineer because I believe it was either on the brink of going to construction or was very close to going to construction. So they did have an estimated gallons per minute. So they did have a capacity for that well. So in our hydraulic model, we did incorporate those planned wells if they were there.
Well, we've dug a test well and found a site where we will put a well. And if somebody wants to give us a couple $1 million, we'll be glad to put one in. But we have no funding at this time, so it's kind of premature to use that figure as what we have available, because it may be years before that well gets actually built, put into production. And then also, on the wastewater side, we're also looking at expanding our wastewater treatment plant because it's not up to capacity either. So I don't know if our engineer gave you bad information or what, because we got a $500,000 grant that we've already expended for the planning stages of our wastewater treatment plant. So I don't understand why we're not on the list of cities that are looking to upgrade their wastewater treatment plants. Just questions I have. I mean, I'm not blaming you or anybody. I just wonder when I read this. Also, another thing is I saw a report last week that was sent out by the Water Resources Board of percentages that they're going to want cities to reduce in the next 5 to 10 years and beyond, as far as their overall, compared to now, their water usage. So how will that play into this if they grow? Gustine was not on that list, and I believe that's probably because we have wells, but just about every other city in the county was on that list of how some of them were going to have to reduce their consumption by up to 40% over the term of this report. And do you know how that will figure into all of this?
I don't directly. I do know that, like I said, there is a recommendation for a collaborative effort for Sigma and exploring ways to reduce overdrafting if that is occurring. I do know that there was discussion of potential recharge projects, so groundwater recharge projects that could help mitigate some of that. But I wasn't directly involved in those conversations, so I don't know the exact direction that they're going, but I do know that that is part of that conversation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, this is Paul Yanes, Mayor, City of Las Vegas. Really, I had the same question as Director Nagy's as far as the wastewater treatment, because I know internally in our city that's a huge concern for us, is wastewater capacity and the way that Las Vegas grows, and even with scale growth. And so it was a little concerning with the information provided in here that we weren't on that list as well. And so that's just something I'll take back to our city staff.
And this is our hydraulic analysis, since it was a sort of a skeletonized system, it is assumed to be conservative. So we are taking into consideration the Water Resource Control Board, and I believe it's at 85% capacity. That's when cities should be looking to expand their wastewater treatment facilities. We do elaborate on that in the report. It could have been a matter of, since we were sort of summarizing the recommended projects, that the cities got left out. I would, off the top of my head, I don't have that for you right now, but it could be specified in the report that just didn't make it into the presentation today.
And I think just kind of my second question was, the data collected, does that use permits already pulled for housing? Does it anticipate construction, or is it what's built now?
I'm sorry, the mic kind of cut out. I didn't catch the full question.
My question was, when you factor in the data collected for current housing, does it pull like permits that have been pulled? So in other words, houses we know that are going to go up and neighborhoods that are being constructed, is that factored into the water, wastewater?
It was not, because we used either conversations with city planning staff or existing planning documents. So unless those planning documents specified, we didn't have that information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Nagy, a second by Director Serrato. Since Director Silvera is no longer in the meeting, we don't have to take a roll call vote. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion passes. All right, item 10B is a request to adopt the REAP 2.0 Local Suballocation Grant Program and Regional Competitive Grant Program guidelines. And this is Meg again.
Thank you. So as you may recall, the REAP 2.0 program is administered by the state, and it allocates formula funding to metropolitan planning organizations to increase infill development and reduce vehicle miles traveled. After a lengthy review and coordination process with the state, MCAG has been authorized to use its REAP 2.0 funding for 2 new grant programs. And I'll give a brief description of those. The first is the Local Suballocation Grant Program, and that provides planning funding to local jurisdictions to implement their 6-cycle housing elements. So that can be used for things like your housing element rezone, infrastructure planning, or environmental clearance for infill development. This is a non-competitive program, and the amount each jurisdiction is eligible for is based on a formula off of your population in your RENA. And the second program is the Regional Competitive Program, which is intended for construction of infill housing and transportation improvements to reduce vehicle miles traveled. And there's $2.7 million available for this competitive program. MCAG coordinated with the REAP work group to review the draft guidelines, and they were released for a 30-day public review and comment period in August, and they were also included in the August agendas, and we did not receive any comments. So today we're asking the governing board to approve the final guidelines for these two grant programs and then authorize MCAG to issue the call for applications. A more detailed program timeline is included in the staff report. The applications are due December 22nd, and then a scoring committee will be convened early next year, and then we hope to bring recommended awards back to the governing board for approval in February. And this is a two-part action item. So the requested actions are to, one, adopt the local sub-allocation grant program and regional competitive grant program guidelines, and then two, direct staff to issue the call for applications. And I can answer any questions. Thanks.
Questions? Anybody from the public? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Move to approve Nelson. Second Nagy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries. All right, 10C is a request to authorize the executive director to enter into a contract for the development of a transit coordination study in the amount of $165,605 with LSC Transportation Consultants. Elizabeth.
Thank you. You covered most of my item, Chair. This is regarding the coordination study between TJPA and UC Merced. We went out for request for proposals for a consultant to look at the coordination of the two systems. Some of the key points and why we're looking at it is to look at economy of scale, potentially increasing ridership, and maybe leveraging funding for the system. So we'll see what the study comes up with. It's funded essentially one-to-one with MCAG planning funds and UC Merced funds. And the request, and also I should mention that the proposals were scored by a team from MCAG and UC Merced. So I'm excited for it to move forward. Right now the schedule is that the plan would be completed next October, but we'll see how it goes if all goes smoothly. But this is just the request for the contract with LSC. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Okay. Any comments from the public? Okay, I will entertain a motion. Moved by Director McDaniel, second by Serrato. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion passes. All right, 10D is a request to adopt the 2024 One Voice program goals and schedule. Mary Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. Mary Michael Rawling, Public Affairs Manager for MCAG. The action item before you today is asking you to adopt the goals and schedule for the 2024 One Voice program. You probably remember just a few months ago in July, I was here with the summary report from the 2023 program. And one of the main points of the feedback from this year's delegation was to start planning for the 2024 program much earlier, which is why you're seeing a little different timing this year compared to the last few years. The 2024 program goals, along with the program schedule, can be found on page 310 of your packets, are exactly the same as the past, with the addition of two notable items that are the results of the feedback from this year's delegates. The first of which is that the program focus on just a few policies that are regional in scope rather than a small, unique requests that will only benefit one jurisdiction. And second, that these policy priorities are based on current federal opportunities. These two new goals, I think, are some of the main reasons why the delegation also wanted to start planning discussions sooner to feel more prepared for the trips to DC, which brings us to the program schedule. So delegation meetings are now going to start earlier, as I mentioned, and they will start specifically next month on November 9th. And we're asking all the jurisdictions to have their delegates selected and their delegate agreements signed by that date. During the meeting in November and the one in December, staff and Townsend Public Affairs, and I should say Ben Golding is on the line if you have any questions for him as well. We will provide delegates a general program overview for any newbies we might have in the group, introduce the pertinent federal policy and funding opportunities we should be aware of, and give the jurisdictions time to get back to their teams and identify some potential priorities to bring back the group to discuss. During this time, Ben's also going to be providing the delegates information and guidance about how to go through the community funding request process. There's different words, earmarks, we all know what they are, through the offices of our congressmen and our senators. Although these applications are going to be done by the jurisdictions, outside of the One Voice process, this kind of technical assistance will help our member agencies along what is probably a better path to receive funding for those types of unique community projects that need maybe a one-time special infusion of cash. And then in the new year, for our schedule, we'll meet once in January, maybe twice in February if we need to just that extra meeting to finalize the policy priorities. And then those delegation meetings will pause for March for the platform to come to the board for adoption, and then resume again in April, where we will meet with a little more frequency in April until we leave in May. Our trip is scheduled for May 14th through 17th this year. That is, again, a little later than traditionally held because of the feedback from some of the delegates this year about some conflicts in May. And during those meetings in April and May, the delegation will receive regular updates on the environment in Washington, D.C., provided by Ben, so we can all be prepared for the political landscape we're going to walk into, and also to be prepared for the meetings with specific policymakers, their offices, that we will know more about when we determine what our platform and our priorities will be. And then finally, I want to point out that there was some discussion this past year about the format of our delegation meetings. And based on the schedule and what we need to accomplish as a group, we're proposing that there be a mix of both virtual and in-person meetings. Those are all outlined on the schedule in your packet. The first two in November and December will be held only virtually, and the other meetings will be held in person. We believe that this will allow all delegates the best opportunity to collaborate and coordinate on the identification of priorities and to prepare for the trip to DC. The TRB reviewed this item, including the changes to the goals and the program schedule, at their meeting on October 11th and unanimously recommended approval. Thank you for your time. What questions can I or Ben answer for you today?
Does anybody have any questions? Director Nelson. Go ahead.
Beat you to it. I want to thank you for having these new goals in here. Now, so that 2 to 4 policy priorities, whatever, is that total countywide?
Yes, so the delegates were very clear. We didn't want to take a big, long list to DC. You were part of that group, you know about that conversation. And so in the aftermath, when I was talking to Ben, like what, he thought a good number was to really hone in on, we kind of thought we'd give the group a little flexibility, but that between 2 and 4 objectives was probably a good amount. And I will say that, these are going to be, or at least the vision is, of course, the delegation will make the final determination along with the board. The vision is that, there may be, traditionally we've talked about homelessness in some sense. So if there's a specific policy priority around housing and homelessness that's affecting multiple jurisdictions, that would be the overall priority for the region, but that there might still be in the community at Atwater, you would have your very specific stories or anecdotes that would help feed into telling the story of why that policy priority is important for the region. Does that answer your question?
That's perfect. I was just going to say that, I came to the party late last year because of the election. Sure. So, but the priorities that Atwater had selected, I was like, these are stupid. Be honest with you, I'm just going to say it. Just going to say it. I don't want to, talk bad about my city, but I was seriously contemplating not going this year if we couldn't have decent projects put together. But this makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
Now we just got to get together
And
in
I
the
think-
city and figure out who's going. So.
Yeah, and I think that what we heard a lot of feedback, including yourself, about some of the kinds of priorities that Atwater and others brought to the table is that they're excellent candidates for that community project funding. And so that's why we want to make sure there's a strong emphasis on those conversations during the delegation meetings. And then when we go to DC, if there's any of them that made the short list and they're in the conversations about appropriations while we are there, we will definitely make a point of saying, and by the way, this is our region's project and we want to encourage you to vote for it and support it when it comes before you. So yeah, that's how we'd like to weave those in and go down that, use that mechanism to forward those types of priorities.
Yeah, that's good. And I apologize for being less than diplomatic, but it's just, sorry, it's the way it is.
It's your city. We don't
It's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Director McDaniel.
Thank you. So this is more towards Ben. Ben, so are we going to coach our congressman staff on how to input these earmarks? I know that staff isn't there anymore since the last time, but I didn't know if we're going to have, not that I'm putting the pressure on you, but direct conversation on how to input this stuff.
Part of the goal of starting this process so early is to make sure we're having those conversations over a period of time leading up to the submission deadlines, which will come sometime towards the end of February or beginning to middle of March, somewhere in that time frame. So obviously, last year, start of a new Congress, new representatives in there, everything came pretty quickly. We're taking advantage of the longer conversation next month.
Very good. Yeah, so we can, and March is a perfect time for the submission of those. So, very well. Thanks.
Director Yanez.
Yeah, so I was one of the newbies last time. And so, first of all, I just want to say thank you. The way that, the staff, you guys put this all together and everything that was well-oiled machine that was orchestrated in the 29,000 steps I'm still getting over, but that's okay. I think my only comment is this year, I'd really like to see a focus of quality over quantity. I know there were several meetings we went to where I really felt like we were kind of under the gun, under the time clock, and hurry up and spit out your elevator pitch as fast as you possibly can. So that would be my only comment, is just really quality over quantity.
Absolutely. We heard that from the delegation, and Ben and I have chatted about that. And I think also narrowing our priorities is going to help accomplish that same objective. So yes.
Anybody else? Yeah.
My only concern is if we narrow the priorities and you have cities that don't have skin in the game, that they won't bother to go because there's nothing for them to advocate for their city.
Sure.
That's my fear.
Sure. I would highly recommend that during that time between November 9th and our December meeting, our plan is to kind of send the delegates back to the jurisdictions with their homework, to go back, have some internal conversations about what's impacting us in our community that's also impacting everyone else. We know from doing this for how many years, you guys there's so many issues that impact more than one jurisdiction, and to really, come and advocate for that. It's a group decision, and so we always defer to the delegates, but that process is going to be informed by the information that's brought back from the individual jurisdictions. So does that kind of address that a bit?
I support.
Yeah, we want everyone to kind of know, though, with this timeline. Yeah, with this timeline, it's quicker, right? So we're asking you to do your homework faster, quicker, so the discussion can happen.
And I've gone half a dozen times, and you always get those meetings where what you're talking is going in one ear and out the other. They're not taking any notes. They're looking at their watch, and yeah, that's very frustrating when that happens. So.
Yeah.
Any,
If I could add a little to that, Mayor Nagy, one way to think about this kind of approach is, an issue like water quality is obviously a big issue for all the jurisdictions in the county. So rather than going in and talking about Gustine's, your sewer program or water storage projects, we're going in and talking jointly about the need for water funding to improve water quality, or in the case of one of the items that came out of one of our meetings back in May, eligibility around existing programs for to fund water quality improvement projects in places like Merced County. So that's just a way to think about it a little bit differently, less about specific projects in the jurisdictions and more about ways that we can bring more resources to the jurisdictions of the county through changes in policy rather than funding individual projects. I hope that's helpful. Happy to answer more questions.
Thank you, Ben.
anybody else? I have a quick question. To Mayor Nagy's point, if there was something specific to the city of Gustine or one of the smaller communities, wouldn't they still have an opportunity to kind of break off and go to the different departments, or no? Yeah, no, that would be on the, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That traditionally, now we haven't had this conversation with this board lately, but in the years I've participated, that is a frowned upon exercise, that we're there as a unified group, one voice. I think that if there really is a pressing, so the way it's handled previously is if the jurisdiction wants to go early or stay late to add additional movies. I don't know. Watch those movies while you're on the plane. I don't know where that came from. If you want to add additional meetings to the tail end, but that we are preserving the time we're there to be together as a group. But hopefully, if you have a specific project, you've submitted that for essentially an earmark, and then that then becomes under the umbrella where we'll be advocating for those projects as a whole.
Thank you.
I don't know where the movies came from.
Okay. Any other questions? Are there any comments from the public? No. Okay. Chair will entertain a motion. Motion by Director McDaniel, second by Director Nagy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes. All right. 10E is a request for direction on the draft 2024 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. This is Elizabeth.
Thank you. This item is an action item requesting direction on the 2024 RTIP. The RTIP was discussed in general in the workshop, but this is the time to, ask any questions that you may have of me on the information provided in the staff report, and then ultimately at the end we'll be releasing the draft RTIP for public review. So I'm happy to answer any questions. The recommendation for the strategy, just to summarize quickly, is we have about $16.5 million available. There would be a set aside for some administrative costs, and we're seeking direction on what to do with that 16.5. Also, the other note is there are essentially three options: to not program the funds, to program to an existing project, or program to a new project. From staff perspective, new project is not a viable option, and we would recommend programming the funds to an existing project, which is the AME project, over deferring programming the funds. So that's the staff recommendation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Any comments from the public? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll motion for staff recommendation.
There's a motion?
Second.
And a motion by Director McDaniel and a second by Director Samra. This is to, the AME, right?
Yes, to propose in our draft RTIP that the new shares be assigned to the existing AME project. It would come back to the board next month for approval as well. So we're requesting to move forward. It looks like Stacy might have a comment.
Yeah, so this is giving us the components to draft the draft, which the board will then need to authorize us to submit to the CTC next month. But this action also is to release that draft for public review based on the two components of the off-the-top administrative, less than $1 million, 800,000 or what have you for the PPM, and then the remaining balance being programmed to AME, the AME project.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Item 11 is MCAG discussion items, and we have two. Item 11A is the proposed rescission of the freeway declaration for the unconstructed portions of the SB 152 between Santa Fe Grade and South Route 59 or State Route 59. Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an information item. It is something that our agency has been working on since, I think, in August, when we received a letter from Caltrans District 10 notifying us that there was a proposal to rescind the freeway designation on Highway 152 between Santa Fe Grade and Highway 59. That corridor has been built out as an expressway, but as you can imagine, when Caltrans set out to bought the right-of-way for that corridor, there was plan for, I think, 6 interchanges along the 152 corridor, which, if you think of that corridor right now, the idea of putting 6 interchanges in that segment seems a bit excessive. So there was a process that started with Caltrans to essentially dispose or to go through I don't know if it's a Surplus Lands Act or the similar kind of framework to begin to dispose of the right-of-way properties that had been acquired years ago for those proposed interchanges. They had sought feedback from MCAG and from the county, essentially concurrence with the conclusion that there were no planned projects for the corridor, and thereby them being in a position to be able to go through their process through the CTC to relinquish those properties or sell those properties. So after, I don't know, I feel like I know more about the rescission process now than I think anybody ever should, because it was new to me, and I think it's not something that happens often. We did provide a letter concluding that we do concur with their assessment that we don't have any projects that are planned for essentially those those properties that would be subject to the disposition process. So at this time, you know, and I would invite Marlon, if there's any specific questions I can't answer. What we are doing now is working with the California Transportation Commission staff and District 10 to request creation of what's called the LATIP, a Local Alternative Transportation Improvement Program, that would direct or allow for the funds that would be realized with the sale of these properties to go into an account that would be specifically directed to other projects in the region or our state, you know, I think ideally along the corridor. That also is something apparently that isn't done very often, but I was able to get some direction, and I think we have a meeting scheduled soon between District 10 and the California Transportation Commission staff to get those processes done. So as I understand it, this is about a year-long process, so our job was to concur with their conclusion that there were no projects and that there was no opposition from our part on this dissolution, and as stated in the staff report, there is no opposition from the agency.
Okay, are there any questions? Did you have a question?
I just wondered if Marlon was going to take this money down south with him.
That's why we're asking for a LATIP. It stays here.
Anybody else? Are there any comments from the public? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Oh, it's just an information.
Oh, it's just information. Sorry. Okay, item 11B is the SB 125 new transit capital and operations funding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just be brief here. This was the one of two subjects that was covered during the workshop earlier this afternoon. So I will just recap by saying that this is new state funding that's being provided to regional transportation planning agencies like MCAG to distribute to transit operators with an overarching goal of protecting and increasing ridership and also supporting agencies' transitions into zero emission fleets and technologies. So our staff, as we had walked through these on the chart, developed a list of projects that meet the goals of the program and how we would propose to distribute these funds to the operators in our region for a total of almost $40 million in projects. The SB 125 funding totals $33.5 million. So there would be, based on these cost estimates, a small local match. But as you can see, largely, we have a little bit of an easier job with not having individual transit agencies at all the jurisdictions. So we're able to really focus on the systems that serve our region with the bus, but also some seed funding for an operations and maintenance facility for YARTS and some hydrogen infrastructure for both the YARTS and the bus, as well as a demo project for YARTS. And I call YARTS out in particular because recognizing that is a multi-county JPA that we are a member of, but really focusing either on projects that would also be a benefit to the bus or that would be seed money that we could use to leverage from either other corridor funding sources or other grants. I will say to the directors of McDaniel and Silvera, who attended a YARTS workshop on Monday, I made it very clear that we were also looking to our partners in the other corridors to use some of these funds to support YARTS as well. And so with that, unless there's any questions or if any of the directors that weren't able to attend at the workshop would like me to cover any more material, this is just an information item with this list coming back to the board with some further direction and adoption in November.
All right, Director McDaniel.
Yeah, and I'd just like to echo what Stacy had said. Bless you.
Thank
you. It looked like all of our partners at YARTS was going to throw in money as well. They were very willing because it's definitely helpful to all of them as well. So I just want to say that they were looking to contribute as well.
Director Matt, did you want to say something?
Yeah. How exactly would the turn it to 10 and 11? You mentioned the throughway bus service pilot. That would be an additional route that we would pay Amtrak to perform. That would align with the commuter routes.
Yes. So as Dan has explained it to me, their proposal or their vision for that service would not serve as a commuter route, so that it wouldn't begin early enough to serve as a commuter route. So the concept would be similar to how UC Merced pays the bus to run additional service for the UC system that they pay for. We would be contributing financially for the cost of them operating an earlier route that could serve the commuter needs.
Go back and forth, and then it would hit the train at the time they're...
Caltrain, mm-hmm.
And then 11 with the bus bridge, how would that alter the T route? Just getting it all the way to Modesto, or just on certain types when it aligns with...
I am, well, one, we haven't done that level of analysis to know unless I'm looking at the guys in the audience. But I mean, it could look like an express. It could look like, a modified T route. It's just too early to know.
Sure. And then just what would align with ACE's schedule once ACE...
That would be the goal, would be the primary goal would be to offer the bridge that would get people from Merced County to the ACE station at the most convenient time.
And the latest is 2026 for ACE to Modesto?
Mm-hmm. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too.
So you have to recuse yourself on that vote since you're a user of this.
Correct. Usually you get to know it.
All right. Director
Done.
Pereira.
Yeah, I apologize for missing the workshop, but just kind of, could you clarify, why are we going to spend $5 million on a bus charging infrastructure and then turn around and spend $5.6 million on a hydrogen fuel station?
Yes, so both of those, and I'm going to look and make sure, and I invite any of the transit staff to come up, would be to essentially, I think the shortest answer is that when we are going through our ICT plan, which is the plan that we have to submit to CARB about our transition into zero emission, the recommendations that are coming out of that plan is that our fleet be a hybrid fleet, both battery electric and hydrogen. And so though these projects come out of the recommendation of that plan that would establish the essential infrastructure to be able to operate a hybrid, some of our fleet operating as battery electric, some of our fleet operating as hydrogen. So it would be...
Well, I understand that.
Okay.
Why would we do that? What's the why?
Between having a hybrid fleet?
Yeah, why wouldn't we go whichever's the best way?
Well, I'll ask Nav to come up. I will say at the level that I've been involved, it's not uncommon that you're seeing both have systems go into both. One, because they're testing both technologies, they're seeing which meet their needs the most. There has been growing challenge with the battery electric industry for buses, and a much wider growing industry around hydrogen. But the biggest struggle with hydrogen has been the availability of stations with hydrogen. So, but Nav, I don't know if there's more. You and Jose and Adam have been the lead on the ICT plan, so you can probably provide a lot more specific.
Director Pereira, so currently we have 5 electric buses and we have 4 more that's on order. So one of the things that came out of the ICT plan is, I think what percentage to this board is, the smaller buses, they don't come in hydrogen, they only come in electric. And it's to provide power to those buses as well. And the hydrogen buses are for like long distance, for like the T route, Panada route, the LB, and some of the routes in Merced as well. Like there's, I want to say M7, Jose, is it one of them? Or M6?
M6.
Yeah, and there's some of the routes out in Merced that only optimal under hydrogen, not electric. But then like when you do microbus, those little smaller buses are going to be, right now they only come in electric. That is why we're taking a two-pronged approach of hybrid approach with electric and hydrogen.
Boy, sure seems like a big waste of resources to me. You know, the state is finally, just in the last couple of years, kind of acknowledged that hydrogen fueling, you know, right, is a path that they're willing to let happen. And so I think going forward, you're going to see, I mean, and obviously, right, if I had to pick, man, I'd go hydrogen every day of the week, right? We're going to have grid failure, right? If we're going to have all these vehicles, I mean, it just seems silly to me to be investing in battery infrastructure. I mean, some, right, if we've got 9 buses you need to take care of, but $5 million just doesn't make sense. And I mean, I don't know if we have to program that money, you know, how quick and that, but boy, it just doesn't make sense to me.
But to your point, that is exactly why we started looking at hydrogen. And I'm not a big, I mean, I know Director Pedroso is not a big fan of electric, right? They're not, like you say, you're based on an electric grid that may not even support it. And if the lights go out, you can't charge them, right? And so that's why we're looking at hydrogen. We already have electric buses. We need to keep them charged, and then the smaller buses as well. But for yards as well, we're looking at hydrogen. We're not even considering electric. When we approach other counties, we tell them, hey, with that money, can you install hydrogen stations for our buses? So that's what we're looking towards, really, is hydrogen. Electric is just, I guess.
And if I could just add that part of the reason, the large reason why the state is providing this influx of funding is to invest in these things. And so we're very thankful when we started seeing our zero emission plan and the costs. I think the cost that was originally provided was like upwards of $50 million for like a full transition of our fleet to zero emission. The first question we all had was at the start of the summer was, how the heck are we supposed to afford this? So these funds are falling from the sky, I guess, what it feels like, is really saving the agency from having to figure out how to to fund some of these investments. But the reality, I think, that we struggle with is we have deadlines that the state has imposed on transit agencies about when you have to be investing in zero emission, and we have technologies that have not yet kept up with those deadlines. So we have expectations and mandates that we have to transition YARTs into zero emission, but the electric coaches aren't performing at the level that can really meet the need, and the hydrogen coaches don't exist yet. So then, as Nav mentioned, the electric buses are performing better on the smaller vehicles, and the hydrogen is performing at the, better in the longer run. So it's the industry, technology, and performance is a mix of electric and hydrogen, and I think that these funds are giving us the opportunity to get established and have both types of buses operating in our system, and then we're going to be blinking, and these buses are going to have to be replaced in 10, 12 years, and then by then we'll know, are we replacing them with hydrogen to go hydrogen straight, or are we going to continue with the hybrid? So we're thankful for the investment so that we can do this without dipping into our capital reserve, because we couldn't afford it.
So, okay, but it's still, it kind of doesn't answer the question. How can, $5 million to put in charging infrastructure?
Correct.
Well, how else are you supposed to get the buses to go?
Well, so we have buses that are already going, right? And so if we're not going to be heading down a battery path, why would we then pre-charge the charging of battery buses with $5 million?
I think the conclusion that we aren't going down battery at all has not been made. I think it'll be likely that we will continue, especially with our microtransit program, as those technologies develop. I could see us maintaining some component of battery electric. The charging infrastructure we have right now is temporary chargers, and so we are going to have, as Nab mentioned, 9 buses, electric buses. So we have a temporary charger, two. So it's also to support the investments that have been made in a longer term. So as I mentioned, $5 million as opposed to a full conversion. And I cannot recall, and we can provide this information, and there'll be this ICT plan that will come, but showing the investment over the years, and I can't remember what the numbers are, of how, what the replacement costs. I think what you're saying is correct. We are likely leaning further into hydrogen than electric. We are not in a place, though, that we can avoid investing in some charging infrastructure, because that's where the technologies are. And until the state can solve the broader hydrogen station problem, which there's some hydrogen hub funds and stuff available, we won't meet our deadline if we don't invest in electric now, because we won't be able to be converted fully to hydrogen in time to meet the state deadline. It's kind of like with CNG. Everyone went crazy with CNG. We modified, maintenance for CNG, and at some point CNG fell out of favor, and you saw people selling their CNG buses, but it was a necessary moment. So I think your feeling is spot on, but I don't see how we cannot invest in electric. We can avoid investing in electric in the short term.
Right. So how many charging stations would we get for $5 million?
So it would be another transformer on the side of the building, and basically, I want to say half of it is like 11 chargers, 11 dual dispensers on there. So about 20, you could charge about 22 buses.
I would also like to interject that.
Come in.
To the microphone, please.
Also, by splitting the between hydrogen and battery, we're actually saving a little bit of money on the battery charging infrastructure, because we're going to have to invest in less than half the amount of chargers to support our battery electric fleet. So
this is the lesser number of what was in the ICT plan. That's what I was trying to remember, and I couldn't remember the dollar amounts.
When it's split up, yes, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Director Yanez.
Did you have anything, Lloyd? No. Okay. So just with number 10, I know it was discussed that it's not going to be designed for a commuter. And I'm just trying to reverse engineer the goal because, and I'll just speak for, I can't speak for everybody in the county, but just my constituents in Las Vegas, is the problem is how do they get to work and back? What my fear is if we're doing a Merced through Las Vegas to Gilroy and they're not going to work, are they then going over there to spend money, right, versus spend money here?
It's a commuter. This adds the commuter.
Okay. All right. So that clarified that.
Yeah, we would only be funding a commuter route. So we would, so my concern when I got when I spoke with Dan Levitt was exactly that this was not going to address our commuter issue, and yet when we had studied this issue pre-pandemic, it wasn't quite the ridership to really, and as we talked about it, to justify us operating an entirely new route. So I jumped on the opportunity when he said, oh, we're going to be going over the hill, and I'm like, well, what if we just fund a commuter route? Like, we're just funding exactly for that reason, people who are trying to get over the hill to get to the train or get to wherever they're going. And that's all we would contribute is the costs to operate that early morning run over the hill.
Okay. Yeah. And then as far as the additional partnerships that will be needed, I definitely would like to be part of that conversation just with some contacts that I have over the hill, because there are so many large employers in Santa Clara County and other counties that are willing to have that partnership and start that discussion. So I think that'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
Just briefly, real quick.
Go ahead.
Just to piggyback on the conversation that Lloyd and Stacey were having earlier, I think before we're not making any decisions today, but this is a lot of funding, big important decisions. We need to take this as seriously as possible, and I think as I kind of discussed earlier, the electric versus hydrogen, other issues, we just have to put a lot of thought into those and take those seriously. All these guys, out there, Jose, Adam, all those guys, I know this because I went to one transit conference, so now I'm and I stayed at all. But the point is seeing that and seeing these guys and seeing all the people in the transit industry that spend their lives doing that. There's just a ton of expertise there, and we're just scratching the surface at this point. So they fully recognize all the issues, and I heard it over and over again just in the few days I was there, with the electric buses from the transit operators, significant issues and concerns that they've had operating them. But at the same time too, all the technologies, and it's very fluid and it's in flux and so constantly changing and moving. So there's just a lot of I think my point being, this board has to be really smart. We're not making any decisions yet, but there's a lot of expertise in this room too that we can tap into that we should.
And
that's all.
I should have clarified, just to Director, for the benefit of Director Pereira's not here in the earlier presentation, is that the state provided the guidelines for these funds on I think it was the 1st of October, and we had to submit a financial plan and a plan by December 31st of this year. So though, as I understand it, and I'm going to look to any of the other experts in the room, that this is an initial financial plan that's really going to require a lot of detail on any funding we are asking for, like in this next fiscal year, but that this initial submission, there's some back and forth that will happen, that they're going to want to see calculations on VMT or on GHG reductions and everything else. So what we'll be asking the board direction or to approve next month is going to be to kind of, in the spirit of this, pursue that application process, get the feedback, and start to develop a plan. One of the things I'm going to go back and ask is, what if priorities change? So let's say we submit this, and all of a sudden 2 years in we realize that we're not going to do a CalSTRS because this is over 4 years. That one of these priorities is either not feasible or we don't want to do it anymore. What does that modification of our plan look like? and just get more detail, because I want the board to also be comfortable that this is kind of our vision of what the needs are and what our cost estimates are, but I want to understand the flexibility too, so that if there is going to be that kind of flexibility, how can we balance the concern about maybe not over investing in electric, and really getting more of the investment out of the hydrogen. So I'll go back with those questions, and we'll ask the program administrator so that we can have some more certainty around flexibility over the 4 years and changing programming.
Yeah, I too was at that conference. I didn't cheat at a basketball tournament though. So no, I think I agree with Matt, though. I mean, all of this stuff is so fluid, and the technology is changing significantly. I'm not a fan of the electric. I think that's been very well documented because of what Lloyd said. But, I mean, this the reality of the situation. So with that, are there any comments?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I had one other one. Darren kind of mentioned that on YARTS that it's a cost share. So have the other agencies agreed to cost share?
It would be that, so these investments would be for the investments in yards in Merced County. The understanding is that, especially on the hydrogen side, the other counties would be using their funds to invest in the necessary hydrogen facilities in their corridor. So for yards to go hydrogen, you would have to have hydrogen facilities on all of the corridors in those other counties. So we aren't asking them to bring their county dollars over. I don't even know if they could actually, but they can invest in yards in their corridor with their hydrogen facilities, which is obviously a bonus to the YARTS agency. So it wouldn't be the YARTS overall agency responsible for putting hydrogen in all the counties. It's the counties using their SB 125 money to invest in hydrogen that YARTS could utilize.
So are they committed to that?
We are not even committed to this. So it's been so fast happening. I do know that in Tuolumne County, there was some, that was the first reaction of the TCTC person, that when he heard that this money was there, was like, oh, we want to put it on hydrogen. Not YARTS, but hydrogen. Well, if they go hydrogen, YARTS can go hydrogen because they are a member agency of YARTS. So this has unfolded so quickly, and it's putting the MPOs or the RTPAs in this role that no one has made any confirmation of anything, but quite frankly, we're a ways away. But I think I laid pretty hard on them on Monday about hydrogen's the way that YARTS will be going, so we need them to be investing in that. Yeah, I did, and I glared very, very intensely at them too while I said it. So.
All right, Director Serrato.
One last thing, Stacy, if a partnership potentially emerges with the Fresno COG and there's some ability to have a YARTS bus that gets from Merced to the Fresno airport early and then back, would there be a need to adjust funding for that?
Has an answer for that.
Those are different corridors.
Good question, Director Serrato. I wonder where you got that. So one of the things is if Fresno does join a YARTS board, so the buses leave from Merced. So the goal is, well, if they're going to go empty anyways, might as well just start a service going to the airport from Merced and stop in Mariposa, and then pick up people on the way to the airport. And then on the way back, when the buses do come back to the facility, bring them back as well. So that's the goal, if Fresno joins. Oh, right now it goes, so this summer, we went empty all the way to Fresno.
You said Mariposa.
Did I say Mariposa? Yes. I apologize.
Wrong corridor.
Okay. All right, let me rephrase it. This year when we ran Fresno, we went empty from Merced to Fresno. So Serrato and I were talking, like, what would be great is Fresno joins, we could run a service from Merced to Fresno as a shuttle for the airport to people to get on the YARTS to go to the airport and then come back to Merced. And that's what he was referring to. But that's only if Fresno joins YARTS board. If they don't, then we go straight to Oakhurst.
And so in terms of the costs that he was incurring, we're already incurring the cost deadheading to Fresno.
Correct.
So this would just opening that up to revenue hours.
Correct. And providing the service.
So there'd be no need to, and I also just want to
no need for additional.
No need for additional here. And I also want to underscore that this funding is on top of the funding we already get to explore those kinds of partnerships. So that's why this is very heavy on capital, because operations are, it's easier for us to work with our operation funding to tweak our services to achieve some goals. It's a lot harder to find capital funding to invest in projects like this. So so no need to, I wouldn't anticipate there being a need, Director Serrato, to adjust any funding here for that. We're already incurring it.
Okay. Any comments from the public? All right, this is an information item, and so no action is requested at this time. All right, we don't have any action or discussion items for the Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County, so we will move on to the Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority agenda. This is just item 14. 14A is a request to adopt 3 amendments to the fiscal year 23-24 budget. And I'll turn it over to Nav and James, and you have 35 seconds. Just kidding.
You have any questions? So this is a 3-part budget amendment. One's an amendment for operations, one's for capital, and one for fleet. Item A, it talks about a budget amendment to operations. We're increasing our revenue line item from by $4.3 million. $300,000 is a part of agreement with Agriman to agree to compensate RWA for costs that's related to managing and overseeing their agreement, as well as associated costs and installation of equipment. That's $300,000. And then another $4 million. As you know, back in August, we did a budget amendment to offset additional revenues to our capital budget and fleet budget. So this is already taking into account what we've looked over the last 3-4 years. We came in about $24 million in revenue. So we just took that same approach and said, okay, about $4 million is what we're looking at to get, instead of coming back to the board and doing another budget amendment for surplus of revenue. So this is just installing $4 million. The $4.3 million would be going to our reserve funds, which is for our capital and fleet. For our capital budget, we're amending it. Last year, the authority approached the county to discuss a potential partnership to rehab the Billy Wright Road in Los Banos. For those who hasn't been out to Billy Wright, the road's in pretty bad shape. So we reached out to the county, and the county got an estimate to do a rehab on that road. It's about $800,000. What we predict, we just add another 20% for contingencies, about $1 million. The county is willing to put $500,000 in, and RWA puts the remaining $500,000. So the first $500,000 cost would be on the county. Any additional costs after the $500,000 will be on RWA. So if the cost comes in at $250,000, $750,000, the $250,000 will be on RWA. And then the final budget is on the fleet. We are looking to purchase a compact scraper for $1.2 million. James was actually, Holt reached out to James basically saying that they had a scraper on the yard where one of their customers backed out. And so they have one sitting there ready to just pay and pick up the scraper. And the lead time on this is about 12 months. We were looking to purchase it in next year's budget. So when we had an opportunity to buy it right away, we have about $1.5 million in our unencumbered fleet budget. So this would help us purchase a scraper, which there's a couple of factors that why it's beneficial for us to buy it. Extending rebuild period, obviously the scrapers that we have are 15 years or older. It takes months to rebuild these scrapers. Increase in hauling capacities, right? As you know, on our monthly report for the manager report, our tonnages are going up from year to year. So this will help us move dirt over our closed areas. And then it helps us mitigate downtime. So if a scraper does go down at Billy Wright or at 59, the spare one will help, back up the site so there's no downtime on it. So that's basically what the budget amendment is. Does anybody have any questions?
Are there any questions? Does anybody in the public have any questions? All right, I will entertain a motion. There's a motion. Is there a second? Motion by Samra, second by Giannis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
That's some hard work, James.
All right.
Stand up there and look good.
So, okay, there's no RWA discussion items. We'll move on to other reports. Executive Director's Report, Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I emailed the board and the TRB and our partners that on November 1st at 9 a.m. we will be cutting a ribbon as our first zero-emission vehicle leaves the yard and enters into service. So you're all welcome. It's not going to be a big to-do, but we did want to grab some pictures, and this was partially funded by Measure V, and they're nice and pretty, but as I think we'd shared, the holdup since we had received the bus was the need for fare boxes, and fare boxes are hard to find, so we were able to get the fare boxes and install them in the buses. So if you're available 9 o'clock on the 1st, to come on out to the facility on Wardrobe. We're going to snap a few pictures, cut a ribbon, and watch it roll out into the street without any emissions, leaving us in no dust at all, because it will say on the back, thanks to Measure V, you can't smell me. So that's been a vision of mine. I'm not even kidding, since we passed the measure, and I think how many iterations of our staff thought I was joking. Nav can attest that I was not. A little bit of fun. Okay. Also want to give a heads up that I started reaching out to some of you. We didn't have a meeting last month because there were a number of conflicts. Thank you for many of you working out your conflicts to be here today. I understand there's another significant conflict for the November board meeting. And then of course we have our December meeting. So I'm going to finish reaching out to you all to just kind of take a cue to take a query to see if there would be any opportunity to move our board meeting up a week. I know that if you want to check calendars now, I can check in with you afterwards. The default is we're going to keep the meeting on November 16th, but if there's if there's a miracle that can happen that we could move it to the 9th at 3, I'm going to be making some fast inquiries to make that determination. So just a heads up that if I approach you about that, I'm trying to figure out which will be the least impact on quorum. Lastly, I do want to report out, since we didn't see each other in September, that we had a very successful visit with the Caltrans director, Tavares. I think it was August 31st. Feels like ages ago. Thanks to the city of Merced and the county of Merced, your staff were very helpful in getting that material together. We had Caltrans director, Tony Tavares, the District 10 director, Dennis Agar, Marlon. You were here, right? You came out. Okay, good. I thought so. I was trying to think of, Grace didn't come. That's right. But a really great tour, and we appreciated many of you who came out for lunch. And then also, as part of the Finish the 99 Coalition, I was in Sacramento a couple weeks ago, earlier this month, and met with a number of agencies, met with Secretary Omashakin, talked about finishing the 99. So as I mentioned, we are addressing. I did share the safety issues that had come up, and we had recently had an accident I think the weekend before I was there, and just continuing that discussion, like I said, for that broader vision of needing to finish the 99. One of the things that in consultation with the chair, we have talked about scheduling a board retreat for the purposes of talking about developing a regional vision on regional projects in Merced County, beginning to look at a discussion of really the end goal of MCAG having a bench of projects that your jurisdictions are all working towards, so that as funding opportunities come, we have our marching orders. We can look and say this project schedule and type matches this funding opportunity, or this opportunity, and with some discussion around prioritization, not to have a rigid prioritization, but funding type and funding opportunity and schedule determine a match more than anything. But right now we know we have AME and Pioneer, but sometimes those projects don't match what the opportunity is, and then after that it's very difficult to just make calls around who has a bridge project ready, who has this yes, and hopefully funded very soon. So not only having that conversation and trying to really coalesce around the vision for this body to support and develop and deliver projects, but many of the discussions on the measure also came down to wanting to have some refining conversations around the definition of regional projects for Measure V. So long story short, and as I mentioned, talking with the chair, we'll be working on in the first quarter of 2024 getting something scheduled for the board to come together around those topics. And then lastly, I just want to say, I know that a lot of the team has left, but there's a number that are here. This has been an exceptionally challenging month. I will just say on a professional level, we normally have our CAC, TRB, and governing board meetings, which are small feats to get done. I know we do it every month, but it's a small feat to get 3 public agencies organized and agendized and the work moving. But this month, in October, we also had East and West Side regional projects meetings for Measure V. We had the unmet transit needs meetings and hearings. We had the Yards annual workshop in Yosemite Valley. We have the Measure Citizens Oversight Committee annual meeting on Monday. We had CTC meetings to prepare for. We had our advocacy meetings in Sacramento that happened this month. And I know it probably feels like there's a whole team of people, which we do, but it's really this core group of people that have just been stretched thin, and I think we all have more gray hair and more sleepless nights. This month was a bit rough, and that was on top of being quite short-staffed, and then also, as many of you know, grappling with a tragedy of the loss of our friend and former colleague. So I just want to give a shout out to the team. You all have to be my witness and carry it back to the office that I appreciate you guys. I know it's been a tough go of it, but thank you for all you do, and I know this board appreciates you too. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Item 17 is director's reports, and we'll start with Director Yanez.
All right, so both mine are good. First thing I just want to echo what Stacy said. Thank you, seriously, for all the hard work that all of you have done. Just because we weren't sitting up here last month doesn't mean that anything in the train stopped in any way, shape, or form. So I just want to say thank you for all of your hard work. And then also an invitation. Please come out November 3rd, 1111 G Street. It's been 67 years in the making. We're going to tour a brand new police facility. To give you a comparison, not just because I used to be an employee there, our lobby and men's locker room is larger than our current police department. And so when you come out, you'll get to check it out. 30,000 square feet, state-of-the-art facility. So if you want to join me November 3rd, we're going to have a ribbon cutting at 10 a.m. at the new police department, 1111 G Street. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Director McDaniel.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, staff, definitely. It's been, I know just for the Board of Supervisors, the last 2 months have been incredibly, seems like we've been out of town every week at some kind of meetings and traveling, and I can't imagine having that many meetings at one time, but I'm glad that the East Side committee meeting went smoothly and without any bumps. But no, staff definitely, Christmas is coming though, so things will be good.
The end of the tunnel.
All right. Thank you, Director Serrato.
A big thanks again to staff, especially with everything that's gone on, personally with what the tragedy that happened a few weeks ago. And everybody working hard in spite of all that. And you think of all the, I know everybody's got a full plate, and all the big issues, all the big regional issues, transportation, housing, on and on and on, that you guys work on every day. So just really important work, and just know you're appreciated.
Thank you. Director Hogue.
I guess I'll thank everyone for everything that they do. We had a town hall meeting last week. I think it was last week. Seemed like it was last week. And this is my 7th year of being mayor of Dos Palace. My first year, we had a town hall meeting, and the issues that came up at that meeting were huge and negative, and so fast forward 7 years, it has really changed. The overall view of Dos Palace has changed, and I just want to say that we are moving in the positive direction. The things that we thought the citizens were going to come back with were nothing like we thought it was going to be. Everything that was issues 7 years ago have obviously been not a big issue these days. So that was a positive thing for us, and I just want to thank this board and everything that everyone does, because some of those projects were right here funded through the MCAG and Measure V. So we are moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Pereira. You're welcome.
No, I'll tell you what, right, I've known Dos Palace forever, and I just think you guys, you've had your struggles over the last 7 years, and so to have positivity in that is just a testament, I think, to the mayor and the city council. But honestly, so good for you guys, because I know what that's like. Thank you to staff as well. Thank you again, Marlon. Man, you just, you and Dennis made a heck of a team, in my opinion, and there was a few others, our vendor and some, but anyways, we're gonna miss you. And then the last thing that I'll say is, I get frustrated sometimes. I do a lot of research on the battery and the fuel cell, and they're just night and day difference. And so for us to spend that kind of money, it just seems silly to me. I understand we've got pressures, and I get that. And so that's why I'm apologizing for my frustration. But I love you guys.
Director Nagy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to reap a bunch of praise on you guys because Nav's head is already big enough. So, but you guys do a stellar job, and you are appreciated, all of you. So, one thing I'll leave you with is remember to be decisive, because the road of life is paved with flat squirrels.
Director Nelson.
There's not much to say after that, so I'll just ditto everything else.
Director Sambra.
Yeah, I just want to thank the staff. What Stacy said, it does hold true. Having gone through all that and having Nav on your team, that's a bit challenge itself. So,
someone understands.
With him on the team and still getting things done, I got handed to the staff. Really, no, but and to me, every time I have contacted the staff and Stacy and everybody, I always gotten the right information. The information we receive is always up to date, and really appreciate everything that you guys do. And then adding to, I don't know if it's a real thing that you're saying, thanks to Measure V, you can't smell me out. Is that real, or is that just, I never heard of it until now, so, okay. Well, anyway, the day we're going to launch the zero emissions vehicle, I'm not sure if I'll be able to attend, because back in July, I think that's when we first previewed the vehicle here. I had the great idea of sitting in the driver's seat and getting my picture taken. That picture never got posted, but Director Serrato's picture was all over the place. I'm not sure who took that.
He's much more photogenic.
Is that what it was? Yeah, so I'm not sure. My picture disappeared and his got posted. I remember him taking the picture, so.
Well, he did go to the transit conference.
Is that what it was at? It wasn't here?
No. We'll look for that.
No, but now I'm just, and all good, It doesn't matter who's posting. We're there to promote what we were trying to promote. I was just saying, so if I'm there and I get my picture taken, I hope it doesn't get overwritten. Thank you. No, but other than that, I just want to thank everybody. I don't attend as many meetings. I'm an alternate, but I still see all the hard work that this board and everybody's doing. So thank you, everybody.
Okay. All right. I'm going to be really brief. I had the opportunity to go on that tour with the director. I thought it was really cool to see and have him see what we're dealing with. And if you could have seen his face when he went over that bridge on 59, it was priceless. It was really funny. So with that, before we adjourn today's meeting, I'd like to ask that we observe a moment of silence for someone that we all knew, longtime MCAG employee Eva Ibarra, who recently lost her life in a tragic act of violence. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.